Greetings and welcome to Unveiling Reality. How's everybody doing this evening? I hope you are all doing and living well. Say hello to my VIPs that are here in this very special edition. It's a deprogramming edition. Like, this is a big deal. Right? It's like one of those things where I put a complete package together from beginning to end to help those people understand different topics, but also those caught up in them, to give them a way of double checking what they think they believe, right? And giving them a chance to change their mind, right? Giving them a chance to live in truth rather than trying to be right. And that's unfortunately one of the big things I run across in this rabbit hole we were going the other night. I actually, in 2022, 24, I wouldn't think that I needed to go down this rabbit hole, but I've been seeing so much of it lately, and it might just be my feed on X. It might just be my feed on Rumble. I don't know, but I'm coming across more and more people that are today buying into this old grift that's a decade, 2 decades old. It's like, it's been so debunked, as I'll show you tonight. But I'm going to walk through and make a complete guide so that you can use it in your discussion, so that you can pass it along to people who need to hear it, and just ask them to keep an open mind and see if after listening to it, they still want to believe what they believe. I mean, it's a chance to get things right. I'm going to talk about why it's these things can be very dangerous and how they're discrediting, but also how it takes the focus off the real problems, right? And the real things that they can put their energy behind, right? And I'm going to show them many different ways of how this happens. We're going to go through the science. We're going to go through all of it. But first, again, thank you, Wolfram, for dropping these links. And let me get this going too. Ding. All right. Thank you for dropping those links. Wolfram, he wipes his paws, loops in the house. That's how we know he's here. All right. And there's Shelly in the house. There she is, saying hello to everybody. Hi, HT. How you doing? Happy that you're here. All right. And I hope more people will be joining us soon. Let's see how we're doing over there on the Rumble side. People are piling in over there. That's good. We got people on X, hopefully, that are coming through. Well, not quite yet, but they'll be there soon. And I did put out quite a lot about this because I wanted to try to pull in as many people as I could. I know some people are just like, well, I know it's stupid, so I don't need to go to the show or whatever. But you never know how you might be able to help other people escape the grift, right? And a lot of these people are going to be like, automatically turned off by it. So I'm going to talk to them first, right? And then we're going to get to these 5 gifted memberships. But I wanted to talk to them first and directly say, this is not an attack on you. I know a lot of people who debunk this grift, this conspiracy grift, are very mean to people who have bought into it. I'm not going to go there because I believe it's just, when you see how it works, you'll understand how easy it is to fall for it for some people who already have a solid distrust, which is a healthy distrust of things. But how they pull you in the direction they want you to go, and how this grift itself is designed to do just that, right? To play off of the same type of psychological elements that would suck people into other kind of conspiracy theories that will conspiracy grifts that will inevitably hurt their reputation, hurt their credibility, and cause their channels to fail, and so on. So this is actually just, hey, I'm going to lay it out for you. I've been debunking this grift for a decade and a half now. It was one of the first ones I took on, and I gave it a chance. I gave it every chance in the world. I saw all the documentaries. I went to all the websites. I saw all the evidence. I sorted through all of it, and I gave it a chance. But then as I went through it, I started realizing where the gaps were, and how, truthfully, the burden of proof, which is never given, solid evidence proof, is on the accuser. It always is. And that's how these things work, right? And you look at someone like, that's into the flat earth thing, right? They always try to push it back on the people who don't believe in the flat earth and make them prove the earth is round, right? Well, they proved it, but they still won't listen to the evidence. A lot of that goes on here, right? So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to go into the science of it. I'm going to talk about all the typical arguments that they use, and we're going to go through each one of those and put the truth on that. We're going to talk about the things that they cannot explain or refuse to address. some of the questions that come up. We're going to talk about what enables this grift, how it's been enabled for so long, and how the establishment is responsible in a lot of ways for this grift, right? We're going to talk about the negative results of believing and promoting these ideas of chemtrails, right? How it can hurt them personally and hurt the cause overall, right? I'm going to talk about where we agree and what the solutions are in that agreement, right? And in that, how to escape the grift while saving face and becoming effective in your activism, right? So that's really what the goal is here, is to help people escape the grift and become effective in their activism. Because at the bottom line, they probably want a lot of the same things we want, and they probably are just not there yet. Like this is really early first veil kind of like belief, right? This is some of the stuff that people fall in early when they leave the establishment narrative. They're looking for things, they're looking for evidence, and why not the lines in the sky, right? Of course, there's certain elements that highlight people that would fall for this, and some of that is just basically these elements right here. And so, guys, I'm going to be doing a lot of talking tonight. I'm going to be doing a lot of showing of evidence. We're going to go through a lot of material, and so I will be keeping an eye on the chat. But I will have times where now I'm just going and going and going and going. So keep the chat active. Talk amongst yourself. And for my mods and for the people who are regulars here, because I'm going in this linear fashion of explaining things one by one, that's the deprogramming. That's how you do it. You got to step through it. You got to step through it for the people that are going to be defensive and they're trying to maintain their belief, their false belief system in chemtrails. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of how people are, right? So you have to kind of walk them through, get them out of the denial, get them out of the fight or flight response, and get them into the buyer's journey, get them into awareness of this new information if they're not already, enabling them to keep an open mind, get them into consideration and decision, right? That's how we're going to get them to come to acceptance and hopefully become more effective in the fight, because we need everybody in it. Like, I mean, that's why I'm not going to attack people. I'm going to point out people. I'm going to point out what they're doing and where it is, and because it has to be called out. But it's not an attack. It's a request to revet your belief system, and I'm going to be here to walk you through it. And if you got the nerve, if you got the time, come on in and talk with us about it. But one thing I can't do is keep reversing, or I can't jump ahead, right? So in some cases, I might be like, well, hang on, that's going to be coming, right? Or in other cases, is like, I've just covered that, so you're going to need to go back to the beginning and rewatch at a faster speed, catch up with us, right? So I need my mods and my regulars here to help me with that, as people may be popping in during the stream after I've covered points and try to debate those points, right? And so what I want them to do is watch what I've already talked about, come back, and then try to debate those points, right? It's important that you hear my side of it, where I'm coming from, and what the evidence I'm presenting before you actually jump into the same old, this is what I start to argue with. These are the ways that I argue. Like, really take this opportunity to revet your belief system in this topic, because we're going to find out that a lot of it comes from confusion. A lot of it comes from other bunk grifts that are out there, establishment grifts even, right? And what I want to do is anybody who's outside of the first veil, I want to try to pull them into the good direction, right? To get them beyond the second veil, to get them through the second awakening. The second awakening that's never talked about, right? It's like, you must, once you learn that you've been grifted and taken advantage of through informational abuse by the establishment as you've been growing up, they don't tell you that there's whole another layer that you have to learn about and go through and have that second awakening. So your first awakening would be, okay, the establishment is propaganda. The establishment narrative is propaganda. It's narrowing in my field of view so that I only see what they want me to see, right? And then a lot of people think once they escape that everything on the other side of that is true. Well, the establishment and the mainstream media and all these other people disagree, then it must be true, right? And unfortunately, that's only going to work some of the time, right? These other grifts that are going on, they love it when you fall for them, because then you're going to discredit yourself. But so when you talk about things that are real, things that are important, no one's going to be there to listen to you. And if they are, they're already going to be other discredited people that are going to be out there spewing a bunch of nonsense and then not letting people don't want to listen to them or acknowledge them when they actually have something true and important to say. That's one of the big problems we got with these grifts, these narratives that are like this, right? These conspiracy narratives. Another is that they just leave you living in fear with no solutions. None of these people I'm going to show you tonight have solutions, right? All they can do is spread the fear of these unknown things through the lack of knowledge or the lack of really humbling themselves, right? To come back and keep an open mind, to always be revetting your ideas and your sources. You're going to find that a lot of times as you grow, as you learn more and more, that you're going to not agree with them anymore, right? That you're going to find out, if I'd known a little bit more about like how fallacies work or how false premises work or about how science actually works or how these mechanisms actually work, that I wouldn't have bought into this early on. And then a lot of times that can be embarrassing. So I'm going to give you a safe way to escape the grift while saving face and becoming effective. But first, let's talk about how you doing, Outpost. Let's talk about chemtrail believers. What traits do they all have in common, right? There's some things that you're going to find across the board that enables people to fall for this grift, right? And the first and foremost is lying eyes, right? Lying eyes, right? What they see with their own eyes is going to be the one thing that they tell you first and foremost about. And this is like kind of like a flat earth thing too. It's all about what they think they see. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they see these things in the sky and they don't know what they are, but they're convinced they haven't seen them before or that they weren't there years ago, but now they are. Especially for Gen Xers and people that were born before the 90s. You got to understand that at some point, because the air traffic picked up, right, in areas all across the nation, as time went on, more and more people started traveling by air. The airliners got bigger, the engines got bigger, right? These things became more prevalent, and the lingering low level contrails became more prevalent, right? And a lot of people don't take a time to understand how weather works or how the atmosphere works to understand why they may be just perfectly normal things, right? They immediately say, this is new, therefore, it must be something that's unnatural, right? Because I didn't see it as a kid. But you got to remember, as a kid, your memory may be very, very selective and may not be accurate over time, right? You can remember seeing an airplane way up in the sky, and it's neat because the contrails would disappear behind them at a very high altitude, right? And you're going to find that tonight that has to do with moisture, it has to do with what layer of the sky you're in, and so on. Because the first thing we're going to do is get into the science of it. So I'm going to get into the science of jet engines and how they form and why, a lot of the early assumptions cannot be true, right? Because of the temperatures that are coming out and how it works. So we're going to get into the science first. I'm going to lay the foundation out there like that, right? And then we'll gradually step through the grift itself, and then we'll talk about what's real, and we'll talk about what we need to focus on. Like, because there is aspects of this whole thing that we need to focus on, and so ideally, I can get people out of the grift and into the actual concern, right? What we actually need to look at. And one of the things too that you'll find amongst the believers is they always are confusing and conflating chemtrails with geoengineering. Hey, Jacob, how you doing, buddy? Jacob Castro over there in Rumble holding it down. So first it's lying eyes, right? Your eyes can deceive you. One, it's very hard to determine height and so on, and plane type and all kinds of things just by looking up, right? People have a very hard time figuring out altitudes just by looking up. Like, they can see two planes and think that they're very close to each other when they're actually very far away from each other in the sky, different altitudes. Like, your eyes will deceive you in these cases. That's why you need to understand the science behind what you're looking at, right? And I hate to use that too much because it's been bastardized, but and science has been bastardized by people who try to grift off of it, right? Like the climate hoaxers. The climate hoaxers always are doing that. So that again is part of the built distrust, right? When you have these other grifts out there that can kind of, in a very undetermined way, like they didn't actually mean to do it, but they actually have enabled the grift itself just because they're running their own grift. This kind of cross grifting. But yeah, you're going to find out that when you talk to someone who believes chemtrails, they're always confusing it with geoengineering. They're mishing them together, mission-matching them together. And when we get into the section where I talk about things that people who believe the grift cannot or refuse to address, you're going to see where that involvement is. But that's a little bit down into the show. Another is that, like I just said, the lack of understanding of how weather works and the size of the Earth itself. A lot of people forget about how teeny tiny they are on this Earth, right? And how these little patterns they see over just particular areas can't have an effect on the entirety of the Earth, right? Maybe one little area here, one little area there. They tend to exasperate the impact of something because they feel like, you know, they're a lot bigger because they're looking through their own eyes, and they really are on this Earth. We're very teeny tiny. You got to go to outer space and look back, and that's the way you kind of debunk that for yourself. But a lot of times we forget that in a lot of different ways, and just kind of run with it and don't even realize we're making that mistake. Another thing they all have other traits they all have in common. They typical arguments come from conspiracy grifters or victims of it. Their arguments do, and not from their own actual research. So a lot of times, just almost 99% of the time, they're regurgitating what they've already heard from movies like What the Heck Are They Spraying, which is just a complete grift that's been debunked, by the way, from start to finish. Right, all these things have been debunked over time. They don't find the debunking, right? They find another thing they all are is bias confirmation, right? They all fall into the bias confirmation spectrum because they're not looking to challenge their ideas; they're looking to confirm their ideas. So, the bias confirmation. Make sure that's what bias confirmation is another, right? They're going to tell you that anything that goes against their narrative is bunk itself, right? Like instead of watching it, going, maybe I made a mistake. That's why the important thing is here, and we talk about, hey Daisy, how you doing? We talk about this all the time. Is I'd rather know the truth than be right, because when you know the truth, you are right, right? But they think they already got the truth. But can your truth stand up to vetting? Can it stand up to a test, right? If it's really the truth and you have that much confidence in it, you should have no problem putting it to the test at any moment in time. Tonight's your night, right? So I'm going to walk through that. And like I said, you know, I want this to be a complete deprogramming catalog for people. So step by step, every argument that I can find, I have found, will be addressed, and I will go into great detail, having decades of experience in debunking this particular grift, and having walked through that rabbit hole myself, and giving it every chance in the world to be right. But it just failed the test. It failed the test. So hopefully this will benefit you, and hopefully it will benefit those who've got sucked into it and help them escape and become more effective content creators and anti-establishment fighters. Like that's really what I'm looking for here. Like, you know, the sad part about it is people want to get so divisive when we really just need to help people in certain times understand how the second veil works, right? As we know about here on this channel, how the second veil works. And just to start out, so everybody has a reference that may be new or maybe stopping in here to debate the topic with me. This is how we look at it here. Yep, it's back to the board. So without getting too deep into what the veils of these things are, the veils of perception that we lay out here, right? This is the modern veils of perception. This is the mind control that's being, and the cycle of abuse that's being laid upon us all, right? So you've escaped this first veil, right? This one we were all born into, the establishment narrative, right? Where they're really trying to subvert the young, change the culture. This is generational warfare. You'll see things like these topics right here that we covered. Okay, and by the way, if it's blacked out and has green type, that means we've covered it on the show. So you can find a video about it somewhere on my channel and one of my shows, be it Unveiling Reality or be it Old School Watch Party Sundays, where we've covered these topics, right? All these things. We've done a lot. We've done a lot. I keep always using the right hand, right? We've done a lot, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is once you escape this narrative, there's another veil. Once you get outside the first veil, there's a second veil. And this is where all the conspiracy grifts lie, right? They're waiting for you right on the other side of the wall. And like in a lot of cases, these grifts are just the modern version of COINTELPRO, right? It's to discredit and throw off those who have rejected the establishment narrative. And I challenge you to consider this strongly, right? And to understand that if you believe the powers that be are sophisticated enough and clever enough to run chemtrail operations for decades, without anybody ever saying anything, without any proof ever, any real proof ever being brought to surface, then why don't you consider the fact that maybe they look for these opportunities to discredit you, right? That the second veil is really about the conspiracy grift, in a sense that yes, there's truth sprinkled in on both, inside both narratives, but they both work the same way. It's either that you're being taken in by the establishment narrative, or you're being taken out by the alternative narratives that are conspiracy grifts, right? Conspiracy grifters, we've covered all this stuff, right? We've walked down the alien UFO rabbit hole, right? Which obviously, honestly doesn't cross paths with the chemtrails, HARP, and CERN rabbit hole. Project Bluebeam would be kind of tagged onto that as well. And just to let you know, next week, I will be debunking and deprogramming the HARP and CERN narratives. That's right here, because a lot of times they're handcuffed, right? They're handcuffed, and I'm going to show you how they handcuff them together, and why these things are very easy to debunk. I mean, you can literally go visit these facilities. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take you on a tour of both of these facilities and tell you how they work, and why, how far off these chemtrail grifters are when they start to include these other facilities in there. And a lot of times you have to, because they walk the line between whether it's, they'll call it geoengineering, right? Whether it's their version of geoengineering, or whether it is mind control devices, right? They go back and forth between, well, is it one or the other? Or eventually I'll say it's both. And they kind of wrap everything into this big bubble. Again, no proof, all speculation, but they'll live by it, they'll fight for it, they'll die for it. I'm going to show you somebody who's grifting every single day off this narrative and needs to reverse course. Like they absolutely do. They have way too much attention on this. And what they're doing is they're actually helping the establishment in the long run. They're helping the establishment by discrediting the patriots out there, discrediting the people who reject the establishment narrative, right? By falling into these things, by pushing them into this state. It's a different kind of mind control. Let me pull this back up. I don't know why I put it down so quickly. And I want to point out here too, that the philosophy here is that the establishment never lets a crisis go to waste, but neither do conspiracy grifters. However, they both produce mind control victims equally. And it is a form of mind control to be wrapped up in a conspiracy grift. And I know that anybody who's escaped one form of abuse over here in the narrative, the establishment narrative, the first veil, would be highly interested in not having it happen again. And that's why people who tend to be over here fight more vehemently about, I hope that I got that word right. They fight a lot harder against the information than people on the establishment narrative. They just dismiss you, right? But once they think they got it and they think they're living in truth and everybody else is out to get them, they get to be very stubborn. Like we see down here in the allegory of Plato's cave, right? That first veil is more of the ignorance. Okay, I'm chained to the cave. I'm seeing the shadows. I'm believing everything I see. But when someone comes back and tries to tell you, well, the shadows you're seeing aren't real, they become very stubborn. And this would be the resistance to the outside voices here, right? They become very stubborn. They become very, very willing to block out reason, block out logic, as much as these guys, but in a more aggressive way, because they've already been taken in one time. So, and they figure that they got out of that. And unfortunately, the establishment knows that they're going to lose some people to the narrative, and they have to do something to discredit them, to manufacture this division between people, so that these people over here won't listen to these people over here or anybody else, right? Anybody past this point in the establishment's eyes, is tinfoil hat wearing. And this is part of the dangers of actually buying into this conspiracy, is that they'll rope it all in together. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here as well. So I'm really just introing here, and I'm giving you guys the full layout, and I'm giving you the groundwork of the philosophy here on the channel, is that these veils of perception exist. And what I want to do is walk you through the second veil and get you above it, right? So that you can see down and see what's real and what isn't. And that there's really this underlying cycle of abuse that goes on, right, through all these different things that we are going to agree on. We're going to agree on these things. And I want to get you out of this narrative, and I want to get you into this mindset that the global ownership class, these people here in the fourth cycle of control, fourth veil, right, are in charge generationally, because they commit generational warfare, right? They're always going after the people in the first veil. The kids are here, right? Because you're born into it, right? And then they're trying to discredit and pull down anybody who falls out of it by creating all these different rabbit holes that absolutely lead to nowhere. There's never any solutions behind these things. People who fall into them, unfortunately, like these sovereign citizen people and people who believe that, you know, that your birth certificate somehow makes you an asset to, you know, be sold on the stock exchange. They end up in court and going to jail because they're breaking the law and they're being coaxed, they're being grifted into it and they don't even realize it, right? And then there's other really outlandish ones that are out here too. Like they'll fall into these things. Okay, yeah, there's a plan. Trust the plan. Trust the plan. One of my most popular videos is when I talk about original Q, and I'm using modern terminology here, Q and non. And I realize it's a contrived word, but Q itself, how that actually was a rehash of the original Q that is during Kent Bailey from back in the 2011-12 area, right? So he came up around there again, trying to discredit patriots, keep them sounding crazy, and so that people would not grasp on, or they would be discredited that were representing and Ron Paul, the Ron Paul revolution, right? They're trying to pull people in who reject the establishment narrative, the neocons and the Democrats, and then discredit them by this whole narrative that trust the plan, blah, blah, blah. So I'm getting off course here, but I'm trying to explain to you that there's a second awakening, and that is to understand all of the COINTELPRO that is existent within these conspiracy grifts. Like they love it when you fall for them because you take yourself out of the game. And so I want you in the game, and that's why I'm here. And as we hang out together and you get to understand it, you're going to understand that this entire first and second veil are two sides of the same coin. And yes, there's elements of truth sprinkled in and on both sides, right? But it's how far they pull you down the rabbit hole and how much speculation and a lack of solid facts and fallacies that they get you to buy into that creates that discrediting system, right? It's another form of abuse. And we talk about information-based mind control is information-based abuse, right? Traumatic-based mind control is traumatic-based abuse. The cycle of abuse creates the corruption from which they thrive in, right? The destabilization, the demoralization, right? And the crises that come about because of them, right? And they use the Hegelian dialect, who someone had brought up the other day on something, and I was talking about it. How they create the crises as supposed as the saviors, right? And this normalizes their generational power, right? Why are these people always in control? Why is it always the same people, right? With this elitist attitude above everybody, that we're just their pets, we're just their fodder to be used, their attrition to be used against whatever they need, right? They use us up, spit us out. They think that we're beneath them. They're not racist, they're not sexist. They believe everybody's equally beneath them, right? But they can use us to fight these battles, right? To have this manufactured division by making us believe that we're really fighting against each other. It's really them that's been the bad guy the whole time, that's been turning us against each other. Oh, wait. And if you've been at my channel for a while, you've been part of this for a while, you've seen this, you've seen the episodes, you've seen how I broke this down. We talked about division on repairing history together and how to fix that through education. The Thomas Sowell education, that is, where we actually fill in the blanks of all the omitted history. We talk about that. We talk about all these other isms. That is just elitism with an agenda. There we go. All these other isms, just elitism with an agenda. And whose agenda is it? Global ownership class, because they're the ones who want to stay in charge and reap all the benefits and eventually get to full spectrum dominance, where they can control us from cradle to grave, which they already for the most part do. But they in a very voluntary way. It's going to become very involuntary in the future, especially if Agenda 2030, real conspiracies actually end up getting through. I need to change this to WEF too. There you go. Okay, and so this is the real conspiracies we need to be worried about, right? These are the real conspiracies. I probably need to switch this around, don't I? These are kind of part of the same thing, right? I'm going to switch them around anyways. What did I just grab? Undo. All right, I'm going to switch them around. There we go. All right, and you can see like people that would maybe fall into the chemtrail grift would agree with me about all these things. So let's remember that we're kind of on the same side. I'm just trying to show you that this particular grift, okay, is not helpful and it's not real. So I'm gonna walk you through all of it. I'm gonna answer all your questions, and I'm here. I'm here if you want to talk about it in any way, shape, or form. But watch the information, and I'm going to show you step by step how this grift comes about, right, and how it's been debunked over the years, and just basically where you end up if you continue down this road. Let's start with the science, guys. Let's start with the science. All right. Um, I got a playlist that I'm going to release called Debunking Chemtrails. I should probably call it Deprogramming Chemtrails. I'll fix it. But anyways, it's going to have all these videos on it that you can watch in full. All right, let me pull this up here. Okay. Hey, Angry, how you doing? I'm happy that you're here because I think you need to hear this. When do you need to put the great narrative with the great reset? What do you mean? I'm confused. I'm confused. I've covered the great reset in great detail. Like if you go to my Open Conspiracies playlist, Unveiling Reality Open Conspiracy series, all of that's in there. And by the way, for anybody in here wanting to that's coming here that's heavily in the belief system of chemtrails, I just want you to know that I address real conspiracies here. So there's the real open conspiracies of the clear and present danger. They're actually in motion right now. They're actually happening day by day. And we point these things out in that series. I've talked about this. This is where you really need to focus your energy and stop worrying about things that are speculative, right? And that you don't actually have an expertise on, but you're taking things from movies like what in the world are they spraying and other things, and you're applying it. But this is other people's beliefs, that you're taking what they say at face value and then adopting it to your own belief system, right? Therefore becoming a vessel for their belief system is what it is, right? So I want to give you the information that they didn't give you in that film and like in other documentaries and whatever, people that are like heavily into this, like what is it called? Tanker or something and geoengineering.net. There's these two big websites that are big, huge chemtrail websites that do a lot of the indoctrination. And let me tell you something. These websites have been there for decades. They've been around. I remember them 10 years ago. So they've been around for a while. And all of their stuff's been debunked over time. But you won't get that debunking unless you go and you look for it and you actively say, I'm going to challenge my ideas today. I'm brave enough to challenge my ideas. I'm brave enough to be humble. I'm brave enough to say, I'd rather know the truth than be right. That takes bravery. And I need you to be brave today as we go through this. So let's pull this up. Oh, yeah, there you are. Ding. Okay. And I want to warn you right now. A lot of these people that go out there and do the debunking, they can be unempathetic in the way that they speak about people who fall for it. And I just don't believe that is the way to go. Not with flat earthers, not with people that are following grifts. These people generally have good hearts and good ideas, and they ask questions, which is great. But they've just fallen for some stuff that they haven't confirmed. They've fallen into this state of mind, right? And one of the states of mind is this Dunning-Kruger effect, where people that are reasonably smart and have figured some things out in their life have been very successful at one thing or another, aren't experts in everything, but they tend to believe they can be, right? And this is part of what enables the conspiracy grifts of all kinds, right? Is like we have to admit, hey, look, I'm good at some things, but I'm not some kind of scientist. I'm not some kind of I didn't dedicate years and years of study to becoming this. It's like operating on a person. Like I'm not a doctor. I can see a video that makes me look like maybe I can figure out how to do an operation. But there's so much nuance to it and so much that could go wrong that doctors understand. They've grinded it in their heads. They've spent the time learning, right? That I have it. There's no way that I'm going to be able to perform an operation on my own just by watching a video or hearing someone tell me about it. Even if I'm a very smart person, even if I'm very handy, let's say I can build a house, let's say I can program a computer system, right? That's not going to make me a great surgeon. It's not going to make me a scientist either. But unfortunately, a lot of people that are very smart tend to think, well, if I'm smart enough to figure this stuff out, I'm very smart, I'm successful. I'm smart enough to figure anything out. I don't need to be educated. I don't need to have experience. And they get that in their head, and somehow if you look at everybody in the Flat Earth Society, that's one of the biggest things, right? Mark Sargent, great software guy, right? Thinks he's a scientist and he's not. And that becomes a Dunning-Kruger effect. Noose, what's up? Thanks for being here. Evelyn Cox, thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. All right, so we're getting kicked off here. We're going to start in with the science, right? And like I said, I'm just going to tell you, sometimes these people in these videos are going to be a little harsh. I don't endorse the harshness. I want us all to just reasonably take a look at this together. And hey, you're all good, news show. I'm just happy you're here. Go Fortnite. All right. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 lately. So I just started playing that. I had to play it. I've seen so many videos on it, but I digress. All right, here we go. I know you guys are all ready for this. Let's hit it. Okay. So this is the first one I'm going to bring up. And by the way, let me say this before I start too. Sorry. We're going to do most of the show here on YouTube and also on Rumble and X. We're already on both. Let me make sure I add the links to the chat. There it is. Okay. So we're going to do most, but I am going to have bonus content that I can only show on Rumble and X. So at the end, the tail end of this stuff, we're going to do a jump. Okay. We're going to jump over to the free speech platforms. Well, jump off of the non-free speech platform, YouTube, and we're going to jump over to Rumble and X to finish up. So I just want to make sure you know that, because it's a Joe Rogan. You just cannot get away with playing any Joe Rogan, even in small little things for some reason on YouTube. They protect Joe, even though Joe doesn't really like him. I don't get it, but they do it. All right, let me put this out there. Okay, that's for later or for now, whenever you want to use it. Okay, and by the way, let me double check this too. Sorry, I keep delaying the start here. We are two followers away from 400 on Rumble. That's going to be a big moment, so I hope we make that big moment tonight. Let's roll. All right, pull this up. Okay, I'm going to be stopping a lot, right? So let's do it.
Hello. In this video we will be debunking the chemtrail theories with some actual proven science. Heaven only knows why people believe such rubbish, but
and that's how they say it, right? Why do people believe such garbage? Well, we just talked about how people can be taken in by these things, right? And it's all become from a healthy distrust of government, in which you're going to find out a lot of people on here that are against chemtrails, honestly, are coming out and say, well, I understand. Like, I don't trust the government either. It makes it very, very divisive, right? But it's a healthy distrust. So not a bad thing.
But we will attempt to explain the science.
So we're going to go into the science here.
Firstly, we will look at the jet engine, specifically the fuel it burns, and the byproducts it produces in the exhaust.
Okay, yeah, and this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand, how jet engines work. Okay, what kind of fuel is used, and what kind of byproducts actually come off of it. And there's also a Mythbusters episode, which I did not add in tonight, where they actually go and they get random samples of jet fuel and they test it for all these chemicals that people who believe in chemtrails believe is coming out of it. But you're going to learn through how jet engines work that basically getting anything through jet fuel in this way is virtually impossible.
Secondly, we will have a quick look at different states of water, i.e., solid, liquid, and gas.
This is to help explain how the contrails is the proper terminology for these things, how they form.
The third subject will be to look at the atmosphere, specifically air saturation levels, and what happens to water absorption when air becomes 100% saturated.
This is going to be huge. Number 3 is huge. This is one of those things that gets lost, and you'll never hear on any of the pro chemtrail content and any of the pro chemtrail content. You're never going to hear this, right? They never talk about this because this blows a lot of the things out of the water, or they just haven't bothered to research it. It just depends on whether you're a grifter or you've been taken in by the grift. I tend to believe people are just taken in by the grift for the most part, but at some level, there's probably some handling going on that, is pushing people to continue to put this stuff out. So like maybe some of the bigger websites that are out there that have been there for decades are maybe a little bit more handled, a little bit more COINTELPRO. But what happens is that the conspiracy grift itself becomes the psyop. And what that does, one away now? Thanks, Farrell. Awesome. I just saw that. I caught it in the corner of my eye. Thank you so much. All right, cool. We're almost there, guys. I'm going to have to change the banner. Yeah. Oh, hold on. It's just 2 away still. Maybe it hasn't taken yet. I'll have to double check. Oh yeah, 1 minute ago. It should be working. All right, cool. Let's keep it rolling. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing that they didn't do. I've never seen anywhere in a pro chemtrail content. I've looked at all of it, by the way. I've looked at so much of it you wouldn't believe. I'm not looking at the new school stuff because they're just regurgitating the old school stuff. That's all it is. It's a rehash. And like I said, it's amazing that in 2024 I actually have to cover this, but I just don't want people, young channels especially, people out there spreading disinformation. It does a disservice to everybody who's trying to fight for truth. I'm going for logical truth, not truth or truth, right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you, Farrell. Yay. So you're part of the magical five, I was calling them, that to get us to 400. So yeah, I'll remember that. That's awesome. Okay, let's continue.
We will then put all this in place to describe how all these factors come together in the formation of condensation trails emanating from commercial jet aircraft. Fourthly, we will touch on short and persistent condensation trails, and the effects the latter can produce. We will even use information from tried, tested, and approved publications. Finally, we will have a bit of a laugh at some of the evidence the chemtrail nutters try and use to justify.
And again, nutters. I think it's just because they can be very aggressive. I don't like to think of it like that. I think because there's so much disinformation people are being abused with throughout the first and second veils, right? I don't look at them any differently than I look at somebody who believes in climate change, right? It's just a lack of information, and maybe it's a loyalty. There's many different factors that kind of boil into this, right? But through reasonable conversation and understanding and through empathy, hopefully we can reach reasonable conclusions together. And I can help you kind of see some of the things that maybe in the past, the defensiveness, right, may have blocked out. And that's what I really want to try to go for here tonight. Although it does personally upset me to see people grifting this out there, because I feel like people are being taken advantage of and being used from the people that are presenting it to the people that are absorbing it and believing it. And we're going to run through some examples of that. I'm going to pull some channels up that I've seen recently and talk about this. I'm going to show you examples as we go along, kind of like of where you'll see these kind of grifts appear, and the information that they're using, where they get it from, and why it's not true, right? And had they done a little bit more research, or been able to do more research, then they would not have, unfortunately, spread the disinformation, right? So we're going to go through that, and I'm also going to say again, I'm going to take you through real geoengineering tonight. Like, if I didn't mention it already, that is part of it. Like, remember at the beginning of this, we have to separate chemtrails from geoengineering, right? Just for a minute, we'll bring it back together here at the end. But chemtrails and geoengineering aren't the same thing. You're going to see why they're not the same thing, and that geoengineering is a legitimate, in a sense that it's real, but it's also open. So if it's that open, got to ask yourself, well, why the chemtrails secret, right? They're not scared to tell you about geoengineering and how it works. In fact, you're going to be talking to a pilot who actually does it. And we're going to hear from a pilot that actually does it. And we're going to see a plane that actually does it. We're going to see what they look like. All right. We're also going to see how they're doing it in Dubai, and how they're using drones. Right. So we got to separate the two because they're not the same. Chemtrail specifically is referring to these long condensation trails that linger and they dissipate, and that people are seeing from commercial airliners, right? Again, we're going to talk about later on, this kind of still priming it, so you'll stick around, about things that chemtrail conspiracy grifters cannot explain or refuse to address. And one of them is what kind of planes are being used, how do they do it? Is it things they can't agree on? They can't come to one conclusion on. Is it geoengineering or mind control? Like, I mean, how is that all working out? Because there's so many different little factions in the chemtrail world here, that they don't really agree on much, and they can't really point to anything except for the sky and say, see, this isn't like I used to remember. It really comes down to lying eyes. It really does. Your eyes can deceive you. Now you have to be open-minded about that. The important thing is that at the end of it, you get to the truth. You live in truth. That's what's important. What's not important is if someone got one over on you or not. Everybody's gotten one over on somebody in their life. Everybody here has been taken in by something in their life. So we are not judgmental, and we're super humble as well, and that's okay. You can do that. And this is part of the second awakening, is humbling yourself and understanding that there are people out there that are trying to fool you for their own benefit, or maybe it's the maybe they're being directed, maybe they're not, but it's for their own benefit in the end. And by that, they actually end up helping the establishment discredit you. That's a terrible thing, because we need everybody in the fight for the real fight. All right. So I will take you through real geoengineering, but let's separate that for now. Here we
their
go.
beliefs. The jet engine is an integral part of the modern aircraft. There is a video on this channel describing how a jet engine operates, so we won't go into detail here.
But they do.
Suffice to say, fuel is burned in the combustion chamber, and the byproducts of that burning pass through the exhaust. The typical modern jet burns the fuel around 1,700 degrees Celsius.
All right. That's pretty hot, isn't it? 1,700 degrees Celsius. There we go. Celsius to Fahrenheit. Since we're Americans, we use the proper temperature. That's 3,092 degrees Fahrenheit, by the way. Okay. That's what that is.
This temperature is likely to destroy any chemtrail compound likely to be mentioned. The process of passing through various stages of turbines, the temperature.
Right. Like there's not much that's going to survive that kind of burn. Think about it. 3,092 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty damn hot. Right. I mean, if you were to put your finger, let's say you put your hand with a watch in front of that, everything's going to burn straight off. It's going to be just gone.
Temperature of the exhaust will be approximately 600
You don't
degrees
even get
Celsius.
a blister. It's just gone. There you go. The exhaust, 600 degrees Celsius. So you're burning through, and the exhaust that comes out is 600 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to put that in here too, just to give you an idea of what and that's 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit. Woo, that's hot. That's some hot stuff.
Jet aircraft burn a refined type of kerosene, which is a hydrocarbon. Kerosene contains some additives to prevent gumming at low temperatures, but those additives are also likely to be hydrocarbons too. The chemical composition of kerosene is C12, H26, C15, H32. There are therefore lots of carbon and hydrogen elements, which will become important shortly. When hydrocarbon fuel is burned, the carbon and hydrogen elements, mentioned earlier, react with the oxygen in the atmosphere. This produces carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide is a concern of climate activists, but it is the water we will be looking at.
Okay, there you go with that.
Yes.
Hold on. Other trace elements. There's something I wanted to say right here. Oh yeah, and the jet fuel thing. Okay, so this is where they run into a little bit of a problem, right? Now, is it coming at are the chemicals, right, that you think is in a chemtrail? Is it coming out of the jet engines like this, or is it being sprayed by an additional nozzle additional nozzle? Now, this is one of the things that they won't agree on. You won't hear an agreement on, right? And they'll conflate. And then sometimes they'll say, well, it's both. Okay, well, why is it both? I mean, this is one of the things they won't answer. They'll just tell you, look at the spray, they're spraying us today. But they won't get into actually how it's done. And this is one of the big tells too. It's why you kind of, go back and figure, you can always tell someone, go back and figure out how is it the fuel or is it additional tanks and spray nozzles? But you're going to see why I'm saying this in a minute when we get into the details of the how, right? Things that they cannot explain or refuse to address. Which planes spray? How do they spray? How all the people that would be involved and affected by the poison never whistleblow. This is over decades. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that would have to be involved in this operation. They have kept their mouths shut to this day. And why we don't see them everywhere all the time. Like if they're so willing to do this everywhere all the time, why is it they are not just everywhere they go, they're laying down a chemtrail everywhere? Why is that? There has to be an explanation for that too, if you believe those are real. And why is geoengineering an open practice in chemtrails and aren't, which I referred to a minute ago? But let's continue.
It is correct to say that trace elements of other products are present, such as NO, N2O, and other elements. N2O is also known as laughing gas. However, to show how negligible the amounts are, there wouldn't even be enough N2O to raise a one-sided smirk. So, no chemtrails there. Modern jet airliners use.
And the reason why she's bringing this, it's an AI voice. The reason why this person is bringing it up It is because that's you're going to hear later on when we go through a thorough debunking of someone who's trying to con somebody with a bunch of rhetoric surrounding chemtrails in order to sell their health supplements. And unfortunately, that's what happened. Again, I will give people the benefit of the doubt, but I will hold everybody's feet to the fire, whether I like them or not, whether I think that they're on the right side or the wrong side. It doesn't matter, because the truth is all that matters. We have to live in truth. We have to be better than the world that we're living in right now from start to finish in order to make a better tomorrow. In order to limit the corruption in our society, we must stop abusing people with information, whether it's coming from one way, one side or another for one reason, right? For whatever their reasons is. We just cannot become what we fight. We cannot become what we hate. So anyways, those chemicals that she's talking about, it's going to come of I keep saying she, it's damn AI, that it's talking about are going to come into play later on. So just keep that in mind.
Use high bypass engines, where at least 90% of the thrust comes from the forward fan. Because of this, the cold air from the fan helps to mix up the airflow, more so than older engines, which leads to a greater chance of ice crystals forming. If you don't take our word for it, there is a peer-reviewed scientific paper on the subject.
Yeah, and this is the advancement of the jet engine too. So this goes into why didn't I see them more when I was younger? They did exist. They did exist. It has to do with air traffic, and it has to do with advancements in the size of engines and the jet engines, right? A lot of that has to do with what we're seeing.
Water is a basic compound, essential for all life, and is denoted chemically as H2O. Some, in jest, call it dihydrogen oxide, but if you think about it carefully, dihydrogen is H2, and oxide is O.
Right? I mean, come on.
This gives H2O. That clears up another chemtrail conspiracy theory. Now let's have a look at the properties of water, namely the 3 states water can be in. From basic chemistry, the 3 states of an element are known as solid, liquid, and gas.
I think a lot of us
water is no different.
Basic science.
Ice is the solid state, ordinary water is the liquid state, and water vapor is the gaseous state.
Are formed.
Water vapor is a colorless, invisible gas, which is demonstrated by this diagram of a kettle boiling.
Notice this
area. As you can see, there is a small gap between the spout and the beginning of the steam cloud. This is because the water leaves the kettle as vapor, but as it hits cooler surrounding air, the vapor condensates to liquid state and becomes small water droplets, which we can now see. These water states, and the condensation effect, is important to remember for later in the video. Centuries of study has taken place on the atmosphere, and similarly, much study has been undertaken of meteorology. This is not new science, but well studied and well understood. However, in this video, we will look at saturation levels. We know from actual measurement that as you gain altitude, both the temperature and pressure of the air will decrease. Inversion layers etc. will have a bearing on that, as we may discuss later, but it is fair to accept that there will be an overall temperature and pressure drop when climbing from ground level to 38,000 feet. The equation to determine saturation is complex, and meteorologists out there will be able to give you the data in detail. In this video though, it is sufficient to say that saturation is dependent on temperature and pressure. In this example, which is based at a constant level, point B indicates that at 25 degrees Celsius, the air is just under 50% saturated for a given pressure. If the air is cooled, the amount of water the air can hold reduces, and as demonstrated in the line BC, the saturation increases until it reaches 100%. After that, no more water can be absorbed by the air, and as such any extra vapor condenses to produce water droplets or ice particles. Fog appears when the temperature drops below point C, and the excess water vapor condenses. Water content can be added to the air, which is demonstrated when warm air travels over an expanse of water, such as sea. The water evaporates and is held in the air as vapor. As more water is added, the percentage saturation increases, until it reaches 100%, as demonstrated by line BA. After that, no more water can be absorbed, and any further water vapor will condense.
Yeah, I mean, come on now. Most people aren't going to know that, right? You're going to have to do a little bit of extra work to understand how the atmosphere works. You can't just be like, well, I'm a real smart guy. I have a camera and I have a YouTube channel, so therefore I can be an authority sitting up here you know, without really doing the research on these things, right? I'm smart. I know I can see with my own eyes. But when you get to this, the science of weather and the atmosphere, it's very tricky. Like there's a lot going on up there. You just got to remember that.
Increase in pressure decreases the temperature at which the air reaches 100% saturation. As pressure decreases, vapor particles are pressed less closely together, thus decreasing the chance they will form into droplets. However, the pressure effects are a lot less prevalent than temperature effects. This is the basis on which condensation trails form.
There you go.
To recap, jet engines burn hydrocarbons and produce water vapor as a byproduct. If the air is significantly below 100% saturation, this water vapor will be absorbed into the atmosphere. This is why you don't see trails at lower altitudes where saturation levels are usually lower. Contrails are produced when the saturation levels are high, and the air can't absorb this water quickly, or not at all. The water vapor hits the cold air, and if not absorbed, will condense into water droplets. If those droplets can't be absorbed, the cold air will turn those droplets into ice crystals. This is the basis of condensation trails. If the saturation is at, say, 98%, the water vapor will condense and produce trails. But because the air isn't at 100% saturation, the ice crystals can then sublimate and be absorbed into the air. This is the reason short condensation trails exist. In this photo, you will notice a gap between the engine exhaust and the condensation trail. If you remember the kettle description earlier, there is a brief period where the water exists as vapor, which is a color.
Yeah, and see, here you go. This is one of the things that never gets addressed either. Like why the gap, right? Like you won't hear this on any kind of chemtrail explanation. And again, it goes back to one of those unanswered questions, ones that won't get addressed. How? How is it being done? Is it the jet fuel or is it a nozzle with tanks hidden somewhere in the plane that's supposedly spraying these things that the pilot would turn on and off? You see, there has to be a lot of people. Well, they can remote control it. I've heard this one before. They remote control it and they just do it. So somebody is remote controlling it, right? There's got to be someone there determining when these things turn on and off, right? I'm gonna show you how they're turned on and off, by the way. I mean, it's not really by anybody at all. But when the truth comes out about it, you're gonna be like, oh, that's why they kind of disappear and come back and disappear and come back, right? It's gonna be a big eye opener for some people. Hopefully, I hope so. But anyways, yeah. See, they never kind of explain the how. So that's one of these big mysteries that are kind of out there. They just skim over it, right?
Colorless gas. When the vapor condenses in the cooler air, it becomes visible as water, then ice particles. If the air becomes 100,
you guys see how that works, right? You can see that as it comes out super hot at 1,000 degrees, the exhaust is at 1,112 degrees, right? Fahrenheit. 600 degrees Celsius for all of you Europeans, yeah. But it needs a little bit of time to cool off before it actually starts to forming into crystals. So saturation levels, right, and the cooling off period is about that little trail that we saw, that little gap. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's going into a new state. The water is now changing states because of pressure and because of temperature, mostly temperature.
100% saturated, the air cannot absorb the ice crystals.
Here you go.
If the air becomes 100% saturated, the air cannot absorb the ice crystals, and therefore the condensation trails will persist. They will remain in the atmosphere as long as the air remains saturated.
Saturated, okay? At the end of this video, I want you to remember the saturation thing and what we're seeing, what they just said here, okay? 100% saturation, they will linger, okay? So where would you expect to see lingering contrails, and what kind of weather system would you expect to see lingering contrails? And if you think about that, I'll show you a video that actually will highlight that and will show how conspiracy grifters get it wrong.
This can last over many hours, and during that time, wind and other effects can cause the trails to spread out, change.
Right. You can see they're spreading out. This is over the time, right? Because if they linger, the weather up there is going to affect it. Not only that, the checkerboard patterns aren't a deliberate thing, right? It's the same traffic pattern repeated. It's just moving down the line. The wind blows it down the line, right? Some people, I think, may believe that they actually intentionally draw checkerboards. These are flight patterns. They're all traceable. You can trace them back to where they came from. But yeah, these are known flight patterns. And what happens is the wind blows them and then they blow them over, and then the next flight comes through because there's a lot of air traffic these days. Next one comes through. Next one comes through. The one from cross country comes through that doesn't come through as often, looks a little different. So you have these takeoff and landing kind of like things where their planes are coming down from higher altitudes and going through this 100% saturation zone, and then leaving a lingering contrail. Now, I will say this to all the people that are don't believe in chemtrails, and I don't like the look of this either. Like, this is the one thing that we agree on. Like, I generally don't like the fact that high airline traffic can cloud up a beautiful day. Like, honestly, this is one of the things that kind of got me on this kick. It's like, I don't like that. And it is in that sense kind of an unnatural natural occurrence, right? We're having to deal with, like, there's a beautiful day, and now I got lines in the sky that are definitely man-made because they're coming from a plane, right? But they're a natural occurrence because of the jet engine, right? And because of the way, the nature of the plane itself. I don't like it. I think they're ugly, and I think that they can really ruin a nice clear blue day. And I've literally watched it happen. It doesn't mean I believe in chemtrails. Well, at that time I didn't know quite as much. So I'm like, well, why is it? There's a lot of questions that happen, but when you actually want to be living in the truth and don't really need to be right about things, the truth will make you right eventually. You can keep questioning to the void and understand really get to the true nature of the truth, right? Not fall for the grift. And so I'm gonna get to this point later on in the show, right? About what we agree upon, and what the solutions are to that, and why we should be focusing. You should be focusing on something else besides chemtrails, right? You can still address this issue without focusing on chemtrails. I'm gonna show you how you can do it. That'll be your way out of the grift. Like, and if you fall for it, I get it, right? I get it. It's a little bit humbling. It's a little bit embarrassing, but it's okay. You got friends, right? You got friends that understand, and I'm going to show you how to get out of this, and actually how to find more allies too. So hang tight until the end, because that's what I'm going to talk about this.
Change direction, or even create differing patterns. The trails will not dissipate until the saturation levels of the local atmosphere reduces to below 100%. Meteorologists can predict when condensation trails will start in each area. The graph shown represents the condensation trail forecast for a region on a particular day and time. In this case, Cambridgeshire on the 10th of April 2020 at
So that's something to keep in mind, chemtrail people, right? Right here is they can predict when the contrails form, right? Keep that in mind for later. Let's say they not chem contrails, right? They can predict by knowing the weather and understanding what they're working with, how they may probability of persistent contrails, very low, moderate, high, right? So they can understand basically by looking at the instruments and understand what they're working with in the weather of that day in that area, whether or not they're going to see a lot of these or not. That's important to understand. Hi, Mimsy. That's important to understand, because this is part of your jumping off point, right? This is part of your jumping off point into a new vein of more accurate, truthful activism, right?
1300 hours. The black line represents the forecast air temperature at a particular flight level, and the red line represents the critical air temperature for condensation trail formation, which takes into consideration expected saturation levels and air pressure at those flight levels. From this, we can assume that condensation trails will not form below flight level 315. Above that, we can see that between flight level 315 and flight level 340, any condensation trails formed are not likely to be persistent, and therefore the aircraft are likely to produce short trails.
There you go.
Between flight level 340 and flight level 400, it is likely the aircraft will produce persistent condensation.
I'll let the AI finish here, but you see how this can be used right here, right? You come into here, it's very low, or they're very shortly persisted, right? And you're right above this flight level right here. People say, well, I see two planes, right? This plane isn't producing anything. This plane, the contrail is going away very fast. It's usually very high up in the sky too. But this one's laying out these big, long, persistent contrails, man. Oh, they got to be spraying. Nope. It's literally because of the area of the sky that they're in. And like I said, a lot of this has to do with lying eyes, right? Your eyes will lie to you if you let them, right? And so you're looking up and you think you have depth perception, but you really don't, right? It's really, two things can look very close together in the sky when they're not. It's just it's a condition of being human on the ground, being very small, and having this atmosphere on this globe Earth that we live on, right? It's just it's just a condition. Like most people aren't going to have very good depth perception at that height.
Trails, which may last many hours. Above flight level 400, the probability drops to short trails again. This is why you see some aircraft producing either small trails or no trails, and others producing persistent trails in the same vicinity.
You notice the difference in size of the aircraft, right? It doesn't look like it's very much, but it actually is quite a bit. Like that to have that different perspective on it, like, you know, this one's definitely closer than this one is. This one's way higher than this one. You just can't tell because you're looking up, and that's not the way our eyes are really. They just don't work like that, right? We can see it. It kind of goes into a 2D kind of realm when we're looking up like this.
It is because the aircraft, whilst in the same area, will be at different levels. Earlier we mentioned inversion layers. This is a phenomenon where the temperature can.
Chemtrailers, this is key. I hope you guys are listening, because this is where I answer a lot of questions for you right here.
An increase with altitude, and can occur for a variety of meteorological reasons. This can cause the aircraft to climb through a region where condensation trails are produced, and because the temperature then goes up, the air becomes unsaturated, causing the trails to stop. Once through the inversion layer, the temperature drops again, causing the air to become saturated, which allows the aircraft to produce trails again.
Do you see, like,
this gives the illusion.
They will say that this is the pilot turning it on and off, right? And that this is, oh, look, they slipped up, but they turned it on and off, and now we have the proof. They don't understand this plane is climbing. Again, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, and just taking a grift at its word. You can't, guys, to be good, truth-seeking individuals outside the establishment, you have to be extremely careful, diligent, and patient with your analysis, right? You have to be able to question to the void, right? To understand these things, not to say, oh, well, that's just definitely evidence the pilot's turning it on and off. It's not. That's speculation, but yeah, you're going to go and you're going to spread this to thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people, and unfortunately, you're going to come across very foolish to those who understand this. And I'm gonna have pilots later on too, Air Force pilots, other airline pilots, all talk about this phenomenon right here. I'll talk about this conspiracy grift that's going on with contrails, that they call it chemtrails, right? And while I appreciate your concern for everybody in the world, I want you to be living in truth. So please listen and please hear this out. And don't just let the grift shut you down. Don't let it shut your mind. Stay humble, keep an open mind, get to the end of this with me, and I promise you, you'll be in a better space to do better work.
That the pilot is turning the trails off and then on again. So as we see, the atmosphere regulates when condensation trails are formed, at what levels, and for how long. This diagram helps to explain much of what we have said. We shall leave it here for a few seconds for you to absorb. No pun intended.
Well, that's very funny of you, but okay, so I'll do that with you. I mean, we've got a lot of this information already. I feel like this is a recap, right? We understand how jet engines work. We understand that there's different layers of atmosphere. We understand that weather conditions and saturation levels have to do with these things forming or not forming, or how long they stay in the air, right? This is all basic stuff that would debunk, for the average person, debunk the idea of chemtrails, or the idea that this is some kind of nefarious thing that's going on, right? Just in it by itself, alone and by itself, right? It's just a condition of air flight, air traffic, and the type of engines that we use in order to do these things, right? So real quick, if the outside air is close to 100% relative humidity, the added vapor from the engine's exhaust make it 100%, right? When in different speeds or directions, push contrails in wavy lines. Clouds of ice crystals form right here. Short contrails show the air is relatively dry. Contrails are quickly supplemented back into vapor. If the air is humid enough, the clouds can last an hour or more and spread out. It's all about humidity, right? And what layer you're at as you're going through it. And flight patterns. So everything's starting to really come together here with just a short explanation. Disturbed air created by wings, twist, contrails, mixing warm and humid exhaust with the cold air. So let's continue. Let's see how long they leave it for. Not very far. Okay, here we go.
Many sources are used to try and bolster evidence of chemtrails, and we shall now go through some of those examples. The first, and possibly my favorite, are the photoshopped pictures.
All right.
A lot of them were made by pilots being a little mischievous, but sadly the conspiracy theorists took them seriously. One of the best, and most
Okay, so right here, if you believe in chemtrails and you buy into this right here, this should be your moment of clarity. They literally said chemtrails on off switch. Like chemtrail, you think they would literally put that in a plane? Okay, now turn the chemtrails on. Chemtrails is a terminology that the grifters came up with, not people in the airline industry. It's not like they stole the term from them. This is the funniest part. It's like the term itself was made up by the grift, right? It's not like they said, oh yeah, we found some kind of manual or some kind of like, we got the term from them. No, you created the term as chemical trails, right? So now to see this on-off switch in a plane, supposedly this very antiquated on-off switch too, old school here, right? You just flick it and flick it on, flick it off, flick it on, flick it off, right? That's what they think's going on. So this is it's just funny that the way they put this, but come on, like you don't know this is Photoshop. I mean, stroll in, you can see the remnants right here all around this.
Most used photo is of the chemtrail on-off switch on the overhead panel. However, with a small bit of investigation, the photo comes from the overhead panel of an Embraer 145 aircraft, and the
Okay, see, that's why they erased it. Now, if you take another look, you can kind of tell something down here is missing, right? You can see the difference in shading right here. Oh, it's about the same size as a light. There you go. Yeah, they did a lot of this line right here too. They've done a lot of it. And there's the bleed right above it, right?
switch is, in reality, the sterile light switch. This is a communication system between the flight deck and cabin crew.
They had some.
The next is the airman, standing next to tanks.
Team chemtrail, this spray and pray on-off switch. I mean, come on. If you're into chemtrails and you're believing these things,
Apparently wearing a Team Chemtrail badge, which has very nicely been enlarged.
So
Notice how the badge is perfectly enlarged with no pixelation. Unfortunately for the conspiracy theorists, the real photo is slightly different. Third on the list has to be the 737 panel that shows the chemtrail off, auto, and on switch, along with the turbo generator switch.
Turbo generator. You need
it's such a shame it's only the no smoking and fasten seatbelt sign switches. Sometimes it comes along with the co-pilot eject button. If only it wasn't the emergency exit light arming switch.
Yeah, eject the co-pilot.
The second on the list are the water ballast tanks.
Okay, this one's been around forever, guys. This has been around forever. And a lot of people who don't understand how airliners are tested, right? That there actually are tests that go on, to make sure that planes are safe, to make sure that new planes can handle certain things. Ballast testing, right? Ballast testing. These are ballast tanks, but with liquid, like a human body, right? And they basically can shift weight as the plane turns. And that's what all of these are, right? And they can run different kinds of tests with that. So if you really want to get into ballast testing, you can do your own research, deep dive on ballast testing in airliners, right? But you see, look at all these people, like this woman, these people. These are all supposed to be people that are in on the conspiracy. And as we go along, I want you to think about how many people would have to be involved and on the hush hush about in order for this to be a real conspiracy. Just take all the other stuff out of the way and just think about the logistics of the human beings involved. Right. And then the longevity of it. People have been trying to run this grift since the late 90s. So keep that in mind as well. Right. So here you have it. You have this ballot. You'll see these. They'll pull these tanks up and be like, see, this is the chemtrails right here. I don't mean to use that voice when I do it, but unfortunately, many people have gotten caught up in this hoax. It's just because they haven't drilled down on it and gone back to revet their ideas. You have to, when you're outside the first veil, you need to always be revetting. Right. In fact, it was the revetting of your own belief systems that got you out of the first veil, that got you out of the establishment narrative. Right. So remember, it was those tools that helped you along the way to get out from underneath the influence of the establishment. Right. So don't fall into the grift. Don't fall into the conspiracy grifters who are only out for themselves, or they're out to empower the establishment in some way, shape, or form. Right. They love to make you look stupid. right? And so if you're not going to fall for one line of bullshit, maybe you'll fall for the other, the opposite, right? And we'll just take you and make you inconsequential, ineffective by making you come across as completely unhinged or completely lacking the critical thinking skills in order to make, rational decisions about things. That's what the idea of a conspiracy grift is, right? Not only is it benefiting the grifter financially or in some other way, but it's also pulling you down with it.
Are described as the tanks filled with ghastly chemicals ready to spray us all.
Costly,
In the same breath, it's all secret and no one knows about it.
right? Except for this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy.
In
Who are these guys?
reality, they are ballast tanks used during aircraft testing.
Look, it says it on the tank too. Well, get out of here. Load bank. See, load bank.
In reality, they are ballast tanks used during aircraft testing. So secret, in fact, that the public are allowed on board to take photos, and often do.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. A lot of these secret things that are going on, you can walk right into. Like I said, next week we're going to do HARP and CERN because that's another one that kind of goes along with this rabbit hole, right? They add on to it. They said, well, then they use HARP to do this, and then they use CERN to do that, right? They add on to the whole. When they run out of answers, they kind of add on. You're going to find that the HARP is a very ineffective tool in terms of a global link up with these supposed chemtrails. Like, it's very ineffective because it only really affects a small area right above it. So, and actually you can go into those places too. You can get a tour. You can get a tour of all these places. You can get a tour of HARP, you can get a tour of CERN, and you can get a tour of an airline with these ballast testers on it.
There are plenty of official and reputable websites giving full information.
Yep.
There is one other point.
There you go. See, explained chemtrail plane interior ballast barriers. So he's making a, quote unquote chemtrail plane interior. So, because that's what, like, tanker. What is that? What is that one guy's website? I meant to look this up before here. Chemtrail tanker. Is it? What is the name of that freaking conspiracy website? Tanker something something something. It's been around forever. It's a really weird name. It's so inconsequential. I forgot about it. But if anybody can think of it, let me know. I don't want to waste too much time looking for it. But YouTube tanker. I probably got it buried. Yeah, I can't find it right now. But anyways, its name was Tanker something something something. They had all this back in the day. This website, this YouTube channel was the go-to for chemtrail grift, right? And this guy today is like, he's going to be brought up later on by another video, but he's kind of like a doomer, right? He's kind of a doomer. So again, living in fear is the second veil. They live in fear, have no solutions, right? You have no solutions. Most people that talk about this stuff have no solutions. They're like, I'm just telling you this is happening, but they don't tell you what to do to fix it. They don't tell you how they're going to approach it. I'm just going to spread the truth and raise awareness. You're actually not. And I would say that this is a great lesson for people that are leaving the first veil, the establishment narrative, and going into the second veil, these alternative narratives, how to navigate it, right? How much you ask to take on faith. Big one. Mark it down. How many times if there's a conspiracy ask you to take something on faith, right? Like, have you gotten a full explanation of everything that is surrounding, definition wise, how this works, how that works? Be a good investigator. Question to the void. Readdress your own beliefs. These are things that I'll say over and over again, but I'm telling you, it saves you from falling into shit like this and sending you off on this unproductive path, which is what I'm going to show you here in a bit with some of these channels that are popping up today, how they could do a lot better with their own channels if they would just get off this grift, because they're off base. They could be very effective in helping alert people about Agenda 2030, right? The WEF and the UN, real, active, live, open conspiracies that do affect us and will affect us within they're already affecting us, right? But even more so down the road. They can be part of the solution instead of off into, the wild blue yonder chasing chemtrails that aren't there, right?
If all these aircraft are creating all these chemtrails, how are the passengers traveling, and how are they being kept separate?
Exactly.
The third subject has got to be the YouTube videos that are posted. Remember the pilot on the stand at Shasta County? It's a pity no one did any background checks on the witnesses. Or perhaps the YouTube video of Rosalind Peterson giving evidence.
They never check on them. So you to check the people you think are whistleblowers, check the people you think are experts, make sure they're really credentialed. A lot of times it's an act. A lot of times you're going to find out these people have nothing, or they're just saying they know somebody, or they heard. Like they'll walk their. They may seem very convincing on the first go around, but after you go back and kind of revet what they're saying, they become less convincing, right? So like the first one set sail kind of mentality, right? When you go back and you re-listen to the one set sail, you may find out there's a lot of ambiguity in there, and a lot of nuance that needs to be sorted out. And so a lot of people, you can end up buying $10,000 worth of windows on a one set sale and realize you didn't need $10,000 worth of windows, but it sounded good at the time, and man, you're going to save money, and this is the way to do it. But not that, hey, replacement windows are awesome, get them. But I'm saying that that a lot of those kind of home improvements are one set sales, and they have a technique to get you to buy on the one set sale. So when it comes to putting your reputation on the line and your credibility on the line, don't take the one set sale. Say, okay, I will consider this, but I'm gonna really linger this thing out before I make a decision on it, because my reputation and my integrity is worth more than just buying into what someone's saying. I'm gonna let this playlist fly. You guys can go back through all these videos, double check everything I say, double check me, come back, have discussions with me about it. Do it. I want you to. I want you to. Thank you, Mimsy. Yeah, let's keep going. Now we're on to 500, huh? We're on track for our goals this year. I mean, we did 400 in 4 months. That's awesome. We got 104 months. That's where we started. 300 at the beginning of the year. Now we're up to 400. Let's get going, man. Let's get going. I really want to, and I'm excited. I hope by the end of the year we get up to we at least pass 700, 800. Let's see. We should get to 1,000 by the end of the year. Let's keep on that goal. Let's keep on that goal. And if you're digging what I'm saying, man, whether you believe in chemtrails or not, man, follow me, man. Hang out with me. Get to know me. Get to know what I'm talking about. It'll be worth your time. I'll never, unless you come at me, I won't come at you, man. It's just like, but I will call out things. I will help people grow. And I will try my best to keep us on the path of truth. I'm not perfect, but I will do my best. All right, here we go.
To Congress. She later confirmed that there's no evidence that those trails in the sky are anything other than normal contrails. Or, how about CIA Director John O'Brien at the Council on Foreign Relations, admitting geoengineering in the form of stratospheric aerosol injection is taking place, i.e. chemtrails?
No, but they're not chemtrails. That's the thing, is they're not. That's where we get convoluted, right? That's where we start confusing the issue. Now they want them to be that, but they're not. But the real geoengineering exists. So you have to separate the two. You can't call one the other, right? Because they're done in different ways. I'm going to show you how they're done in different ways here later in the show.
Debunked. Similarly with Kristen Meghan. Fourthly, we must mention the cloud seeding conspiracy.
Oh, here you go.
Cloud seeding does happen, but there are things to note.
Yes.
It is regulated, required.
There you go. So she's going to blow it a little bit. We're going to actually do a live video, like where you see all this stuff. But this is what a geoengineering plane actually looks like. These are flares. Okay. These are flares. They don't form trails. They make explosions happen. Right. And poof, it's like a firework almost. So these are flares, and they have to be flared over where clouds already exist. It's cloud seeding. See, clouds have to be there for you to seed them. You don't just make them out of the moisture in the air through a jet engine, right? So this is where they start to get confused, because they always convolute geoengineering and chemtrailing when they're two different things, and one's out in the open. So why isn't the other? Oh, that's the secret part. Well, that's when they diverge, right? They say, well, no, this is about mind control. It's about affecting people's health. It's about all this other stuff. Okay, so it's not about geoengineering anymore. So you're not gonna ever confuse the two again, right? Inevitably, they go back to confusing the two, because they can't kind of separate their minds from that. It's a weird phenomenon. But even if they get this far to understand the difference, right, they'll still mention them in the same sentence, which is really strange. I mean, even there's a lot of people that that I like that does news that will confuse these topics, and this needs sophistication on the matter. They need to readdress it. I don't think that they're, particularly out to do the wrong thing all the time. Some people are out to do the wrong thing. I know, but there's some people that still kind of buy into this somewhat. I don't think are out to do the wrong thing. That's why I make videos like this. Deprogramming. I'm not coming after you. I'm just going to help you kind of walk yourself back through this whole rabbit hole, and then so that you can make a new decision about it, right? Whether you decide to go back to what you believed or not. I'm just going to walk you through it.
To operate, and smaller aircraft are used to perform the operation.
Okay, so that
Of
comes
course,
down also.
it has to be done over cloud, and not in clear blue skies.
Yes.
Fifth on the list is the statement that there are papers and patents filed on the subject of geoengineering.
Patents, yeah, that's one of the big ones. Like they also say, well, we found patents. There's patents for this and patents for that. Yeah, there are. There are patents for everything. There's patents for, you can get a patent. Conspiracy grifters can get a patent. Anybody can get a patent. The CIA can get a patent. COINTELPRO can get a patent. I mean, whatever you want to call it, right? Anybody can get a patent. Now, how many of these things are actually made and in use? That's the question that nobody asks. That's the work that nobody does. You can come up with all kinds of patents for everything. Just draw it up and submit it. Not that hard, right? It's just an idea. It doesn't have to be a real tangible thing. You get a patent on an idea if it's something like that. I had a patent for a one load washer dryer that could fit in any room in your house. That was one of them. I used to come up with ideas for inventions all the time. That was one of them. Or literally, you could put a load of take off your clothes that you're wearing that day, throw them in, and it would run through a cycle and then come back out dried. So you could literally just wash the clothes you had on that day in a very small, like, very small kind of container, right? So just whatever clothes you're wearing, maybe 2 days worth of clothes, right? And then you could actually stack this in your room, so you could actually wash and dry your clothes in your room. All the exhaust, all the water kind of stuff would go off outside the house. But I thought that would be cool, Why do these big loads of laundry when you can just like throw the clothes on that you want to wear, run them through a quick cycle, and then you have fresh, dry clothes for the next day sitting right there waiting for you. I know. You do, but it's not a one load. It's not a one load thing, and it's not automatic, is it? Does it actually? Mine was going to come out where it raised itself back out all dried. So I don't know. It wasn't perfect, but it was a patent.
So therefore it must be happening. A lot of scientific papers have never been peer-reviewed, or remain as theoretical. It is also against international law to use geoengineering. As for patents, well, there are many that have never left the drawing board. Perhaps you've seen a urinal headrest in service, or better still, a calculate your life expectancy watch. Perhaps you should research what is actually in use before using them as proof.
Yeah, because that becomes a false that becomes a false example, right? A false example. So you're making the assumption that these things actually exist and are actually in use because of a patent. That's a fallacy, right? So that's a fact. Again, knowing the trivium helps with this. Like, am I committing a fallacy right now in my thought process? Keep yourself in check, and that helps you from not falling into conspiracy ghosts, which is another reason why I'm heavily, as far as solution culture goes, I'm heavily promoting the idea of getting the trivium back into early education, because when you teach children fallacies, they're less likely to fall for grifts like this later on in life. Like if a lot of people that are listening to this right now that aren't my crowd, that maybe listen to it later on a different platform, the people that have been with me for the whole ride will know this already. They've heard this a million times. But had they known a lot of people don't know what the trivium is, right? And why it's important to learn the trivium, and that it used to be part of our education in far gone back, and it's been taken out of our education. And why? Because without it, you don't realize you're falling for propaganda, and you're falling for disinformation, because disinformation and propaganda are based off fallacies and false premises, right? Omitted information, all these things like that. They want to keep you from making sense. They want to keep you from seeing the logical truth of things. And that's what we do here, is logical truth. So getting the trivium back into early education helps an entire generation grow up with the skills to defeat the mind control that's out there, because it is the antivirus software you need in your brain to resist the mind control that's out there. The mind control in the forms of propaganda, disinformation, the establishment narrative, and the conspiracy grifters alike, all of them. They're all defeated with the trivium. I had Jan Irving, the man who rebirthed the trivium, modern day, right? Who brought it back up, who made it relevant again. I did a great interview with him a year or so back. He's a great guy. And at one time, early in the 2000s up until 2012 and beyond, he was out there in full force promoting the trivium. He had it right. He was ahead of his time. And so if you want to see an interview with me and Jan talking about the trivium and getting into the nitty-gritty details of it, it's out there, and I'm sure the link will be popping up into the chat here at any moment for you to bookmark, right? All right, so let's continue.
My final subject is reference to the intensity of the trails, and the call of it was never like that years ago.
This is the biggest one. This is the number one indoctrinator into the chemtrail grift, right? This is the number one indoctrinator. It wasn't like this before. And believe me, it's easy to think that. Like, I grew up in an area where I didn't see this. At least I didn't realize I'd seen it. Maybe I didn't realize I'd seen it before, right? Because people that I grew up in the same area with would tell me that they did see them, right? So am I supposed to tell them they're wrong or I'm wrong? Who's wrong? But for a while, I was like, I don't remember ever seeing anything like this growing up. Because again, I don't like the look of it. I don't like the look of it. I don't like it being made to be cloudy when it's not cloudy, just because of air traffic. And that's an unfortunate side effect of it, of modern travel. And I think that I'll talk about this part later. But yeah, it was never like this before. Number one thing, again, lying eyes.
Those who live on active airways, particularly major routes and crossing points, can't be that surprised when a number of aircraft pass overhead in crisscross patterns.
Okay, you see this? These are all planes. These are all flight paths. You see how they look when you get up real close to them? So if they're in that saturation level, right, they're going to see the crisscrossing patterns, right? They're already there. So we get back to one of the biggest conundrums that the chemtrail people that believe chemtrails have, right? What plane is it coming from? All of them? Well, if it's coming from all of them, all the airliners, right? Because these are the airliner flight patterns here. What airport's coming from? What kind of planes are doing it? They can't make up their mind about it because it doesn't make any sense when you really break it down. That's why they can't make up their mind about it. Is it small planes? Is it big planes? Is it the fuel? Is it tanks with sprayers on the outside? What is it? They'll never tell you those pointed sky saying, look at this. I'm going to show you some stuff here in a minute after this video.
With regards to the claim it didn't happen years ago, it is fortunate that avid photographers took
1963. Now, people will claim that chemtrails started in the 90s. 1996, I believe, is like when a lot of them pinpoint. Yeah, well, which would be like what a lot of people in Gen X were getting out of high school. Well, getting out of high school, 96, or getting out of college. Yeah, college. Yeah, it's about it. It's about when I started in more, but the traffic picked up, airliners, and the engines got bigger. But here you go. Look, this is from 1963. Looks just like today, doesn't it? It's a lot more straight kind of like patterns here. There's a little crosser right there, right? But check it out, 1963.
Photographs of it happening many years back. It was certainly noted when Allied bombers, who also burned hydrocarbon fuel, created condensation trails. Unless, of course, you believe bombers weren't bombing, they were chemtrailing instead.
Burn. I mean, kind of. But like, look, you can look at the difference between this airplane right here and this one up here, right? Not so much. So just a little bit above can make all the difference in the world in terms of the upper atmosphere. Like, it's literally in layers, right? You can literally go from layer to layer to layer. That's the way it works. But you wouldn't know that. The average person wouldn't know that. That's expert information. If you've become an expert on it, if you've studied it, if you've dedicated your life and your time to becoming all knowledgeable about the upper atmosphere, then you'd realize that there's layers to it. But most people, that's not average information right there.
There are many other examples of conspiracy theories, but as this video...
Yeah, go. There's Geoengineering Watch. There's one of them right there. This one's been around for a long time. It's got all kinds of BS on it. That people will go there. They go to the documentary. What in the world are they spreading? They see things that people are swearing to God is true, but later get debunked or are completely wrong, like the ballast tanks, right? Like completely wrong. They use this as evidence to convince you this is actually going on. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. 1940s. Yep.
Has shown, it can all be debunked with actual true and scientific evidence.
All right.
We
Oh, yeah.
can't
Here we
let
go.
this
Look at
video
this.
finish without mentioning probably the most used piece of evidence.
If you see this one too, man, you know that someone's trying to really mess with you, man. Right? You know, someone like just look at this for a second before we debunk it, but look at it real quick. Right? Okay. First of all, chemtrail fluid aviation use only. Dihydrogen monoxide. What's that? H2O. Yep. Look at this. Memory erase, sterilization, mind control, paranoia, right? Lot number is F you idiot, right? And she's going to go through all, I mean, the AI is going to go through all this again, but if you look property of the US government and it says not right there, um, you're an idiot if you think any of this is real. That's right on the box right there. So, and this is like a paper box, isn't it? This is like a paper, like US made in USA, and this paper, and it's on top of a bookshelf. This is so funny, man. And yeah, they point all this out, what I just pointed. So I'm not gonna even, we don't even need to hear that anymore. All right, so let's go back to this view. Okay, so there you have it. There's a scientific breakdowns of everything. I know, isn't that funny, Mimsy? It's hilarious, right? But you'll find that people using this in a quick flash of a video. Like they'll flash that little image by real quickly. Same with the other ones we saw earlier with the chemtrail buttons on and off and the patch, the team chemtrail. I mean, they're not seeing that people are just literally making fun of them and they end up using it as real evidence. And that's the sad part. And I don't like that either. I don't like that either. That's the problem. That's why conspiracy grifters persist, or people that are victims of it persist, is because they're treated this way. And I think we have to realize that this stuff works out pretty damn good. It can fool people in a quick glance, right? And we got to teach people to be more discerning with their information. That's what I do. Like I want to guide people in and out of these grifts into the truth and make them become effective by attacking and going after the right issues, like Agenda 2030, WEF, and the UN, all things to talk about all the time here, right? Let's get off of this and get onto that. However, I will tell you at the end, if this really does concern you, if you're like me and you don't like this persistent content in your view, there's actually solutions out there to combat this. And I can tell you how to make unlikely allies in this fight and how we really should approach this to make them go away. If you want them to go away and not be used nefariously, right? Because it is creating clouds, isn't it? Or it's actually creating clouds, it's creating persistent cover. And unfortunately, with all the attention to that, we may have created a monster. So stay tuned for that information. But let me pop over here real quick. I want to show you something. Now that you've learned this, right? Let's go look at how people are using this information the wrong way. Okay. Here we go. It's my first call out of the evening. Real fishing life. Okay. I wanted to point this out. This is what they put out just the other day. Now, this is a guy who could have a really good channel. And I'll show you that in a second. And this is a look at, 353 followers, right? But this is the kind of videos they put out. Like this guy could have a really good channel if he wanted to, because he's up in Alaska and he does fishing. He's a second, third generation fisher. And just talk about fishing up there, talk about the fishing industry, talk about things like that. But yet he mixes this crap in on his channel. Let me show you real quick. Okay, so you have commercial fishing, black cod and halibut, fair weather grounds, truly beautiful. Look at that. Like, look at that. And unfortunately, look, it's 26 views, right? But and mixed in with all this great stuff is harp frequencies. Again, we're going to do harp next week, so we'll be back to real fishing, real fishing life again next week, and all this BS. But he puts out these videos of just weather patterns with, you can see the actual contrails in them. So let's look at this real quick. And I have to turn down the volume because it's, yeah, okay, it's down. All right. So this is what they do. They don't even, no explanation, right? They put this out, and what do you see? What do you see? Eureka, Reading, right? These are there are airports in this area of the country. There's airports all around this country, right? Eugene, Oregon, right? You're in flight patterns. But also, what else do you see that now we've learned so much today, right? Look at this weather pattern right here. You see clouds. So what do you think the saturation level is at right here, right? And they show that this is moving, and somehow this is a chemtrail operation. It's not just airliners flying through a cloud where there's high saturation, right? High saturation, and then leaving basically these trails. Now, one thing that can happen is when you fly through areas like this, right? You can actually take the cloud cover like this right here and turn it into lines. Sometimes there's patches of right on the brink, right? So the added vapor adds the cloud cover in there, right? So this is what how they spend their time otherwise. Just finding these things they don't understand, putting them out there and calling them massive chemtrail operation. And that's sad, right? That's sad. But look, there's where the weather system's coming from right here, right? And you can see how it has the space in between the big bands, right? And so these are the bands just rolling across. This is normal weather patterns, right? But then you see the contrails. So there's an international flight, just one by itself. Why isn't there checkerboards all over the place here, right? If they're running operations, it's just a single cross trans-Pacific flight right there. You see? There's upwards. And so it's just a normal weather pattern. But what they think they're seeing, because they believe the lines are chemtrails, is a chemtrail operation. So what do? They promote it on their channel. Sad. It's really sad because, here's somebody that can have a decent channel, but chooses to do this. And what do you see up here? This is part of the peril, right? Is that what, here he is quoting Thomas Jefferson saying, when the people are afraid of government, that's tyranny. But when the government is afraid of the people, that's liberty. Okay. Well-known quote, right? Here's the cross, right? Christian, right? So now you got liberty, you got Christianity, and you got conspiracy grifting all in one. So boom, boom, discredited. People that are like this, who think like that, people are like this, who think like that, are, mixed in with this tinfoil or whatever, which they don't, honestly, if you're promoting this stuff this randomly and vehemently, you don't deserve credibility because you haven't done the research. You're just regurgitating what other people have told you, and you haven't vetted your own ideas. And look at this. As you scroll down, he's mixing it all together. Chemtrail, weather control operation, ongoing offshore California, right? What's this supposed to do? Is there solutions in here, right? Is there education in here? And look right here. But no, there's not. It's just a video that's supposed to make you feel like you're being sprayed with stuff. And look right here. Geoengineering chemtrail operations. Now, see what I said? They always conflate. They always confuse the two. Here they are again, right? And then, like I said, next week we'll be covering HARP and CERN and why that's BS. This guy makes a lot of sense, but he says scientists are lunatics. I think this guy's in a video coming out. Punch holes. Oh, the punch holes in the clouds. This is a natural phenomenon that is caused by rain clouds at a higher atmosphere actually raining onto the cloud. So this is a perfectly natural occurrence, right? I'm not sure if in this video they're saying that these aren't, but judging by everything else I see on this page, our entire globe is clouded over. Toxic geoengineering weather. Like the entire globe is doing this. HARP frequencies don't operate like this. You have to come back next week and I'll explain it. But I'm promising you, right here is an incredible thing. They put this image out. These clouds aren't above this right here. This is a photoshopped image. And I feel like I'm back in like 2010 with this person right here. Like, why are you doing this when you have a great channel about fishing? Why would you include all this stuff? But they've obviously been scared into it. They obviously feel like, they're under attack. They're under threat, but they haven't had the right information to debunk it, and they haven't gone out and done it themselves. And there's pages and pages of this stuff over and over again. And then you mix it in with endless nights of dead trees, you have other things, toxic chemtrail operation, Gulf of Alaska. It's massive HARP frequency waves over top of Idaho, Colorado, and Utah. HARP can't reach that far. HARP can only reach a little small area right above Fairbanks, Alaska. And guess what? HARP's there. So why aren't you there? Why haven't you gone to see this facility at the University of Alaska now curates and experiments with? Next week, guys, if you don't know what HARP is, you don't know why this guy thinks it's bad, all this other stuff, come back next week and I'll be doing another deprogramming video on all this. All right. A massive controlling chemtrail bunker ship. And that's exhaust. That's steam. That's the steam coming out. It's like, now they're doing it with boats. Is there anything that doesn't do it? Maybe your car is doing it. Heck, you know what? There is a chemtrail coming out of your car. It's called exhaust. Like, it's so funny. Anyways, so that's that guy, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like, when you don't know what you're looking at, you'll think something else. And especially if all you have is, you think that anybody that's going against the alternative narrative is somehow with the establishment narrative. There is another world. There is a pure truth oriented world. And I'm inviting you to join us in it, because that's what we do here. Like, I'm not anybody. I'll tell you, I'm as anti-establishment as they come, but I'm not going to let them or anybody else control my mind. So this is freedom. Let's go get back to the videos. I'm looking at you, Chad. I haven't forgotten about you. Valid point. Teach people how to discern by educating them. Exactly. That's what we're doing here. Like you see, I'm not attacking people. I will peer review your stuff. I am going to peer review some stuff here. But that's in hopes that they will have a moment of clarity through it. And I doubt this guy will ever see my stuff. He probably won't ever see it. But for you, the viewers, anybody who's come here today and who wants to better improve their knowledge on these topics, I appreciate it. It's important. There's so many people out there, and I don't think highly of this opinion that they have or this action that they take, where they just pish posh and poo poo on people that have been misled. It's like, that tells me something about you. And I get it. It's frustrating. I get it. They can be annoying and so on, right? But you have to understand their condition. At baseline, they want to do something about the injustice in the world. The baseline, they want to do something about the amount of secrecy in this world. Baseline, they probably want the same kind of world you want, right? It's been a little bit misled. Have some empathy. Give them a chance. If they're going to continue to be obnoxious and continue to not open their minds and be disruptive, or just completely make fools of themselves, then let them. But really, we're trying to reach the people that are reachable. Hey, don't push them off. Don't blow them off. Don't think that they're not important because they've gone down the wrong path. A lot of people go down the wrong path in life. They're still important. They still matter, and they can still be powerful allies down the road when they're living in truth. And all we have to do is pull them out of it. Same way we want to pull people out of the establishment narrative. Same way we want to pull them away from the mainstream mind control, right? The same thing. It's just another side of that coin. And so I'm not willing to write off anybody unless they're completely working for the establishment and they want to plunder, they want to discredit patriots. They do it in they're very nefarious, they're very calculated, and they're very destructive. Then yeah, you're gonna get the full on head first attack. But otherwise, I empathize and I want to pull you back from these things, and that's why I offer the programming. So there you have that channel. We'll come back to that, but I wanted to show you how they'll just use the weather mapping to try to confirm their bias right there, and that's what we saw right there. We saw this like this right here. Hold on, can you see me? Yeah, this is bias confirmation, right? It's just pure bias confirmation. There's no audio over it. There's just a song that I don't want to play because I don't know if it's copyrighted or not. And that's just a lack of explanation. It's just really bias confirmation. It's not going to do well for your channel, buddy. You might want to consider pulling the shit down and talking about fishing, something that you're actually an expert at. And people would find more interesting, actually. I would find it more interesting. I would follow you if you did that. But I will be back next week to talk about your heart videos. All right, so let's move back to the education part and the debunking, the videos I got lined up for us. Let's see. And speaking of, I think this is the same guy. But and people will be like, okay, Harvard scientist, blah, 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 right? But he just kind of like, I'm kind of like trying to show you the echo of what other people outside of or even in the first veil will think of people like kind of promoting this, right? Not winning much credibility with them. And that's kind of the point of this next video.
So one question might be, why am I pretty confident that it isn't happening? And the answer
Harvard
isn't
scientist.
that I trust the government or everything it says.
See? Right there. The answer isn't that I trust the government and everything they says, because that's the initial reaction you're going to get from someone who is upset with you for not buying into their narrative, right? Not buying into their grift. Because Prince said so. Yeah, Inya, you got it, dude. He's going to be in here. He's going to be in here. That's one thing they've taken from this, man. Prince, God rest your soul, buddy. God rest your soul. He was never wrong about anything. Purple rain. Purple rain is actually chemtrail rain. How about that? Yeah, that one is very famous. It'll come up. Oh, don't give me a hard time now. All right, I'll talk while you do that. We can share this info stream with others as well. Yeah, absolutely. My big problem is that it takes so long, but that's why I call it deprogramming. Get through the whole thing. Hang with me through this. Play me on a faster speed. Hold on, I don't know what it's about to do. Why does YouTube do this? Okay, I'll start it over. But here we go. All right, you're back in there. Good point. I want to make sure I address these real quick. There are certain conspiracy theories that are pushed because they aren't true, and the ones that are kept quiet about by most rich and powerful people. Yeah, they actually tend to not be scared of flaunting their real conspiracies, right? And then you have ones like 2020 election. You have ones like Michigan, pandemic hoax. Radix Verum doing an awesome job on that. Need to have her on soon. There's ones that they come out, right? They're coming out every day. Well, why don't people that are doing things that are interested in these things focus on the real ones? I don't get it. It's because they've been scared into these deeper, darker rabbit holes, right? And they're still down there. They need help. They need to be pulled out because they want to be effective. They really do. They want to be effective. They're in a survival mode themselves. They're lost. That's the second veil. That's what I talk about. I've been talking about the entire time on this program right here, Unveiling Reality, is about how the second veil is designed to get people lost in it, right? And how you got to pull them out of it by introducing tools like the Trivium and inspiring them to revet their ideas, giving them the out, the humbleness, right? I'd rather know the truth to be right, therefore I'm allowed to be wrong. I'm allowed to mind control is real, so therefore you can be taken in by it. It's psychologically accurate, a psychologically accurate attack, because if you don't know it's coming, you could literally fall for it. You could be boxed in by information. You could be taken by omitted information. You can not, if you don't know what fallacies are and false premises, you could be emotionally manipulated into a belief system. It's all there, right? We're very open and honest about these things. But the real damage comes when they try to make you useless and ineffective by steering you into a wall that you can never come back from. I think the madness professors are pushing now has shown us that even a PhD from a top college means absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean they're very driven too. That's mind control itself, isn't it? They're working around under false pretenses. The establishment has tons of conspiracy theories, conspiracy grifts, like the weapons of mass destruction. That was a complete conspiracy grift, right? It was a conspiracy they said was there, and it really wasn't. They wanted you they wanted to manufacture your consent for them to go into endless wars. That's all it was, and they did it because they control language. They control a lot of the media that most people see. Oh, my YouTube setup has been fixed. Okay. Okay. No worries. No worries there. All right, here we go. Let's listen to this guy real quick. It's real short, but I wanted to just to kind of like give you an idea that most people that will debunk or deny chemtrails aren't people that are going to, trust or necessarily trust the government or agree with them with everything. They're people that are kind to keep an open mind as well.
Why am I pretty confident that it isn't happening? And the answer isn't that I trust the government or everything it says. The answer is that I trust individual people to speak out. And I think governments are actually pretty bad at keeping large-scale secrets. So to be clear, governments can keep operational secrets for a short amount of time if they involve a small number of people. So like the US government was able to keep secret the details of the raid on Osama bin Laden before it happened. And Canadian government can keep small secrets like that too. But Western democracies, as far as I know, just really, there's no experience of them having really large programs involving thousands or tens of thousands of people that are really kept secret for decades. And that's especially true for ones that are really strongly prejudicial to the public interest, at least in some people's view. So, I mean, we do now know through Edward Snowden lots about what NSA did. And in fact, we knew quite a bit before Edward Snowden. And I personally think NSA shouldn't have done that, but that was a very big step from deliberately slaughtering the US population.
Yes.
The chemtrails conspiracy, there's different claims, but the basic claim seems to be the government is deliberately doing something on a large number of commercial aircraft. And to do that, you'd have to have a supply chain to put all material on. You have to have engineers and people at airplanes loading this stuff. There'd have to be thousands of people involved to move that much material. And to do that, those thousands of people would have to have some idea what was going on. And all of this would have to do something that was horrible. And there's sort of no chance that somebody wouldn't speak out with high quality evidence. And yes, you could imagine maybe the government sort of shoots people who speak out, but they can't do it that successfully. Heck, even in the middle of the Second World War, even when most Americans would have agreed that it was good to develop atomic weapons, we didn't keep the secret. The fact is there were people inside Los Alamos who leaked the details to the Russians before the weapon was even used. Governments just don't keep secrets like this. So that's the basic reason I think that the idea there's a large-scale secret program is just completely ridiculous.
This also plays into the UFO, UAP, alien rabbit hole, right? Project Disclosure and all these guys. That this full-scale operation is being kept under wraps, and they have all these ways of explaining it with no proof for any of it.
But the question is, why do so many people believe this? People believe that 9/11 was staged. People believe there are aliens on Air Force bases in Texas or Nevada or wherever. The fact of the matter is that in our society, a lot of people just believe things that normal science doesn't believe at all. People believe that vaccines are somehow hugely destructive when the evidence is the other.
Well, okay, I'm going to divide, and this is what I'm talking about. Like when there is a concern, it can be brushed into this pile. And this is one of the negative effects of buying into conspiracy grifts, right? Because the truth of the matter is that people that have concern about vaccines are concerned about the engineering, and they'll try to spin it into like, well, you're just a tinfoil hat person that thinks that science isn't real. No, they haven't said that. They said they're concerned with the people who make them and what they're doing. And a lot of times the schedule, like why so many so fast? No doctor can explain that, by the way. They won't tell you that they can't explain it. They can't explain why so many so fast. Because I asked the question myself and they can't. Right. And then you have the government actually coming out and trying to change the definition of it. So I don't know when this was made. Let's see. 7 years ago. So this guy may have a different opinion by then, but you see how, and this I was going to bring this up later on. I will still show you guys some stuff, but this is why when you have a real concern about something, right? And people want to, like the big pharma and others want to resist the push to like investigate how they're operating and what they're putting in things and is it safe and have they done the right amount of testing, right? They can label you a conspiracy theorist and throw you in with chemtrailers, throw you in with flat earthers, throw you in with QAnon. That's what they do. So this is how it benefits the establishment when you grift conspiracy theories that are easily debunked, aren't true, and just require more effort than you've put in to understand, right? This is the danger that channels like, even though they don't have any reach, Real Fishing Life and this guy I'm going to show you a little bit, Concerned Citizen on Twitter X, right? This guy spends every day just like putting out chemtrail videos, and I can't believe that. I don't know if this guy is what, I don't know what his deal is, right? Some things you make, I agree with him on, but this is the majority of his time is done trying to convince people that contrails are chemtrails. And I'm going to show you some really grifty stuff on his channel. Like I'm calling it out because it shouldn't, like literally it's trying to mislead people. I don't know if it's intentional, if he's well-meaning. If he is, I would imagine that he may come to the table and be willing to revet his ideas and consider that he, do no harm, right? If he's just into the grift and into building his numbers with people that buy into conspiracies on his Twitter feed, then he probably would resist this information. Just my guess, but I don't know. I'm going to call his channel out anyways, because it's every day I got to see. I'm not even following this guy, and every day I got to see his stupid chemtrail videos, and I'm just sick of him. He didn't know what he's talking about in any of them. It's just really sad. I'm debunking everything he's talking about right now today too. So I hope he comes around. But anyways, yeah. So that's the problem. Is like this guy too, Concerned Citizen, wants to speak out against the MNRA stuff, right? He's very big on that, and I probably would agree with him on, depending on his approach, at least the issue itself, right? And I know many people would. We all have a lot of experience to know that this is a real issue. But then he mixes in chemtrails and completely blows his credibility out of the water. Now you have a lot of people that are either going along with it, promoting it, or just don't have any clue how things work, who would take this guy because in some words he's credible, talking about credible things, and in others he's not. In some posts he is, and some posts he isn't, right? And they latch onto it. Maybe they're just escaping the establishment narrative. They don't know where to turn. These are the rabbit holes these are the kind of people that make people fall in these rabbit holes and never get out of it. Now they want to talk about liberty, freedom, and why they change parties, and then they're going to tell you about chemtrails, right? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Now, what does that sound like to somebody who hasn't heard any of it? Sounds like you're freaking crazy. Suddenly, one day everything was normal, and yeah, I know there's corruption. Now I'm getting a better explanation for why there's corruption, and then suddenly I'm getting sprayed with chemicals from above, and there's nothing I can do about it. Where does that take a person? I think I'll just take the blue pill, right? A lot of them just go back to going, okay, that guy's just full of shit, right? People who talk like him now, there's an association, right? So, okay, oh, you don't trust vaccines? Oh, you must be a chemtrailer. See what I'm saying? See how easy it is for them to take that ammunition that you built and given them and just turn it back around when it's an important issue? That's exactly what that's the deal. That's the problem. The big problem with conspiracy grifts is it runs cover for the establishment to whitewash. Is that the right word? To whitewash real important issues like safety, right? With jab safety, and that's I've already said it has to do with the schedule they put kids on, and it has to do with the engineering, the people making it post the science. The science is how immunization works, right? That's the science aspect of it. After that, it kicks into engineering, because now you have to engineer something and mass produce it, right? And get it out to all these people. And there should be testing, there should be all these things done after the engineering. Is it being done right? Is some of the information not being told to us that should be told to us? Why has there been a spike in all these disorders since the evolution of these things? These are valid concerns that are being pushed under the rug and covered up with chemtrails and other conspiracy theories. It's being wrapped in with QAnon, wrapped in with, they always wrap it in because it's their cover now. They can take all these stupid conspiracies and they can cover it and say, okay, well, we don't want you to mess up our profit margin here on these things, or the fact that we're being slop about all that stuff, and we don't care that we harm people, right? They don't want that. So they can just mush you in together with the QAnon shaman and crazy things, and that's the new archetype. That's the archetype they adopt, right? That's why they always include it, and it sucks. And that's why we have to push back against grifters, conspiracy grifters, and call it out and help them come to the light, because they're actually really helping the establishment in the long run. That sucks. And I'm sure they don't want to do it. And if those brave enough, those with the strong enough mind can come to the table and say, you know what, I was taken in, but now I'm going to fight even harder. Good for them. Welcome aboard. You're now part of the really effective group. Those are going to push back and be like, no, you're this ruined, you're just that. And fight back with fallacies and fight back with ad hominem and not really just have an open mind. You're useless anyways. You've already lost. You're already part of the establishment. Just go back to them. Take the blue pill, go sleep.
The other way. So why?
Okay, so that was it. That's it. Okay, so let me push this guy back for a minute. Again, now we're going to start to tackle different aspects of the grift. I'm going to run down a lot of the enablement of it, but also the things they can't explain, the things that have been debunked, and what the typical arguments are. So we're going to really be hitting these three areas right now. So typical arguments, they weren't like that when I grew up. We hit that with the video before last, right at the end, right? We showed pictures from the past, and we showed that they have been. It just, memory is a weird thing, especially from childhood to adulthood. And maybe you just weren't paying attention. Maybe you moved to an area that maybe you're from an area that didn't have a lot of high traffic, and maybe you moved to an area that did. Maybe the days you did notice it or didn't notice it were days that didn't have a lot of saturation. I mean, there are just too many variables to go by. So you have to go by whatever proof you can find. We see photos from the past, pre-90s, that clearly have these persistent contrails in them. They found high levels of toxic substances in chemtrails. Okay, so that's a misstatement. We're going to be calculating that as we go along. But what they do is they take groundwater samples after they say that, you know, these things were above them, if they actually were directly above them or nearby or whatever. And then they say they found high levels of all these poisonous, toxic metals in these samples. We're going to address that. Like I said, they use chemtrails in conjunction with HARP. That will be addressed next week when we debunk how HARP works. And we actually go inside the facility and see all these master criminals at work. Like I said, things they can't explain or refuse to address, which planes they spray, how did they do it? Is it nozzle? Is it fuel? We talked about already how all the people that would be involved and affected by the poison never whistleblow. That last guy was just talking about that. Why we don't see him everywhere all the time. We're going to talk about that's going to get brought up. And still to this day, why geoengineering is an open practice and chemtrails are not, right? Oh, because that gets into the mind control aspect of it. See, that's where they diverge. They go, okay, but then they'll come back to geoengineering again. I've already said this. So let's continue with this next one. Concrete examples of false claims on chemtrails. This is brought to us by France 24 English.
Now, for Truth or Fake, our daily fact-checking segment, I'm joined.
Let me make sure I got this hold up right. Here we go.
Daily fact-checking segment. I'm joined by James Creedon. Hi there, James. Now, you've been looking at one concrete example of where chemtrails are proven to be false. Tell us, what is a chemtrail to begin with?
All right. Well, if you look into Google Images, you see pictures of them everywhere. Let's take a look at this collection of lovely photos of chemtrails. Can we see those images? I'm not sure if we can. So that's
okay. My educated, brilliant crowd. What do you see first? I got it on ultra low latency, so your comments will come back through faster. What do you see first? You guys are the best out there. You don't know this, but like Miyagi trained Daniel-san, wax on, wax off, paint the fence, right? Paint the fence, sand the floor. I've been doing that to you the entire time, right? I've been doing this with you the entire time. We've sanded the floor, we've painted the fence, we've waxed on, we've waxed off, right? We've done all this stuff. Now I want you to show me wax on, wax off. Show me sand the floor. Show me paint the fence, right? What do you see? What do you see? Did the pilot accidentally turn on the chemtrail switch? Wait, Park. That's what they told people when they. This is proof. This is proof, guys. I'm not seeing anything come through in chat. Let's hit it. Come on. I know you're out there. Hit it. And hey, you can be on X too. You can be on over there on Rumble, right? You can be wherever you're at. Jump in. What do you see here? What do you see? Oh, shucks. I never did when you think about this, let me do this. I forgot something very important. We have 5 new members, gifted membership, and we do this when we get new members.
It's cold. Up good for Vietnam. It has to do. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. It's cold. I can tell you all about it. I mean, look at this thing. When I try to get out of anything.
5 gifted memberships. Thank you, Talking Trash and Truths. I'm sure somewhere way back there you put out the names because you're awesome like that of the people who got the memberships, and I just don't know where they are. Let's see. Lucifer the Doberman passed. All right, passed. Yay. Passed is actually a mod. So good. I'm glad you got one of these. Inky's mom, Paisley Breeze, and Jonathan Spreewell. All of you, welcome to the Winner Circle. I hope you will enjoy your stay and decide to become full-on members when your gift membership expires. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate that. And thank you, Shelly, for gifting those 5 memberships. There we go. All right, let's see what we got here. Test. What are they testing? What are they testing, Wolfram? Yep, I see smoke coming out of the engines. Laugh out loud. What else you guys got? Okay, look. Check it out. The jet engines are right here on the wing, aren't they? Where's the smoke coming from? This little area back here. Let's let him explain.
Okay, so in any case, I'm not sure we're having a little bit of connectivity problems, but chemtrails, look, just to explain it, contrails, it's the vapor that comes out of the back of an airplane, contrail. And for years now, there's been this theory that it's not just vapor, it's chemicals, hence the word chemtrails, right? So this theory, there we go. Now you can see the pictures that we see. You know, it's what you see in the sky when an airplane has gone by. But people will say, all right, contrails disappear quicker. These chemtrails are far too regular. They last too long.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. The grifters they don't know and they don't say, right? So if you're buying into the belief system of chemtrails are real, the people that are supplying you with the information that's making you believe this will never, ever tell you the things I told you earlier today about the layers in the sky and how persistence works with saturation levels and why they persist. They just say that it's impossible. It's impossible. This is like the flat earth arguments, right? When they try to talk about the curvature of the earth. See, a flat earther thinks that the globe model is a perfect circle. They think that we're going by a perfect circle. I'll say, they have their little formula they have worked up, which isn't right. Right. And they don't think about elevations. They don't think about the fact that this isn't a perfect, nobody ever said it was perfect, a perfect circle, but they think it is. So they always lean on that. Staying with this, they'll say, well, no, you have to be at this altitude and you have to, and they only will push, they'll dissipate quickly. They cut the information off there. So they're omitting information. That's one way that they're sucking people into it.
You have straight lines like this. You know, what's going on here? Is this how air traffic normally flows, right? So that's the birth of the conspiracy theory, if you like, that something is suspicious is going on above our heads. Now there have been lots of studies into this, but first of all, let me show you examples of where it's just bonkers. Some of the stuff going around online. This is Angela Merkel and various others standing along with all of these, standing alongside all of these canisters in what this particular internet user, according to AFP's fact-checking.
Like, and the funny part about this too, I love
service,
this.
This a year ago now
said
was clear proof of chemtrails, and that are.
Okay. This is the funny part. Why would you need all these individual tanks? Like you're supposed to be really critical investigators. You're supposed to be really smart, right? Well, why don't you understand? Like, why would you need individual tanks like this? All in the same kind of like pattern as people sitting in airplane seats. Right? Why would you need them? And why not just have one giant tank? Why not have two, just one on each side, right? You have one long tank on one side, one long on the other, right? Their minds are like, it's confirmation bias. We'll take them into the world where they can actually imagine without thinking about it, just make this be true in their mind. And that should irritate anybody who's bought into this theory. It should irritate you that that this got by you and that you need to do better in the future. Like, it motivates you. It should irritate and motivate you. Don't let it get to you, right? Don't let it get to you. Learn from it. Become stronger for it, right? Be better because of the fact that you did fall down once, right? You did fall for something once. It makes you human, right? It makes you human, and it's going to make you a better investigator later on down the road if you just realize it now, right? Why do you need all these individual tanks? It doesn't make any sense. Now they may come back and be like, well, this is so you can disguise it, blah, blah, blah. But all these people here, they're all in on the government.
Our masters, if you like, are aware of this.
Exactly.
And we're being sprayed, we're being poisoned, right? In fact,
look at this, right? I mean, come on, dude. Why would you need to have all this extra material? These, cost. How about cost? How about like whatever, right? I mean, someone's gonna come up with some excuse, right? But look at it. They're positioned exactly where people would be. Same weight distribution. It's for testing. That you can go look at and figure out the stuff yourself. You can go take a course on this stuff. You can actually educate yourself. But the people that push these grifts won't do it. They won't bother to do it. They don't think highly enough of themselves or other people, or I don't know what keeps them from doing it. Maybe just they're lazy or they don't have time. They'll say they don't have time. I don't know. But if I was going to put my name on it, and this is where you got to come with this stuff. If you're going to put your name on it, right? You're going to put your name and your integrity and everything on the line, your reputation for it. You better damn well be right. You better damn well be right, because if not, that's a lot of disgrace. That's a lot of damage being done. Now you could undo this damage by becoming clean, showing people that you're real, right? Saying, hey, you know what? I fell for this stuff. Let me tell you how I fell for it. Let me tell you what I did wrong. Let me help you learn from it. I do that with my crowd too. Like I will go back and 100% talk about what I did do wrong and why I might have got something wrong or I missed something. Hell, I had to eCrow the other week with that Next News Network video. I'm still kicking myself over that. If I just watched a little bit longer, right, I would have had a different idea of what was going on. I didn't, and believe me, I don't do that anymore. So okay, $10 from Wolfram. Thank you so much, buddy. Hold on, I gotta do this right. I gotta do this right, especially for you. Wolfram, thanks for the $10 super chat. Apparently, this didn't post at 9:57 either. If they were really doing the chemtrails, then they could never have. Then the coup never would have happened in 2020. There would have been no need to. Good point. That's a really good point. Really good point. Thank you for the $10 super chat, Wolfram. You are amazing. Thank you so much. And right behind that, T-Rex trucking in more. He's pulling in. Good evening. I'm very late and gay. Evidently. Hey, what's up, buddy? I hope you're learning a lot, getting a lot out of it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the debunking, the deprogramming. Thanks for the super chat. All right. So again, when you're already trying to see something you want to see, this is where it cuts off your brain from being analytical. Like, but hold on a second. What's these big cauldron coffee pot things in here? Why there has to be so many? And why they look like they're all in the seat where the seats should be? Are we supposed to look in the window and not see heads and believe that there's something there? Okay, let's move on.
These are water canisters used to balance out an airplane during test flights, right? So that's just one example of where the theories that are flying around are completely disconnected from reality. This, because it's also presumed that pilots are complicit in this, and the pilots are hitting the button, releasing the chemtrails, so poisoning us all. One airline pilot in 2015 put this up online. You can see here, chemtrails, right? So that was photoshopped. He asked his friend to do that. And what happened was, in fact, the original image was this APU, which I believe means I can find the actual reference.
Autopilot.
Autopilot? I don't know.
No, it comes up later. Don't worry.
Lost it. Anyway, trust me, it's just some air propulsion unit or something like that. That's it, actually. So it was just a gag. He shared it on Facebook, and then it went viral.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it? This is called confirmation bias, right?
Some of his friends believed it. They were like, "Oh, clearly, this is proof that the pilots are spraying."
Oh yeah, there it is. God, it's right in front of us the whole time. And it says chemtrails.
It's with chemtrails. Anyway, this is one study by the New Scientist. They going back to 2016, I believe. Now they're relaying a study rather by the University of California at Irvine and also the Carnegie Institute. They surveyed hundreds of experts in contrails. 77 scientists replied back. 76 of them said there's no evidence at all of a secret large-scale atmospheric program, SLAP, S-L-A-P. One dissented and said, look, there are very high levels of barium in the soil in these areas where there's very few flights. This is weird, but basically he didn't in any way confirm that the theory is real. He just had some doubts, right?
Right. Well, we also don't know what he was looking at. And let me tell you something. If you're doing water samples, you better not get any dirt in that water sample. But that'll come. This will come up later too in the bonus content, by the way.
One of the 77 scientists who replied. So look, that's by way of scientific. Like, where did the scientists stand on it? Anyway, we have a concrete example that was proven by our observers team to be false in the last couple of days. Let's take a look at this with Catherine Bennett.
All right, what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
Pilot accidentally releases a chemtrail while he's still in the airport. Hello to everyone who still thinks that chemtrails are just trails of condensation.
Oh, how embarrassing to put out something like that. I mean, it's like, I feel bad for them. Like, I really do. Right? Well, one, when you see it in the sky, it's usually coming from these guys over here, right? Not the end right here. This is how, like, anything to make it make sense, anything to make it real. They'll when you're that far down this rabbit hole, this is where you go. You stop becoming rational. You start just trying to make things work, right? It's okay. Be humble. Rather know the truth than be right. We all accept people. It's no problem, man. People make mistakes. We accept that. We accept that there's a lot of mind control out there in the world, and that we've all been victims of it, and we can all fall for it. And so you need to have a group of people that will understand that. This is the group right here.
This person posted this video on Facebook in September, saying that it shows a chemtrail streaming out of the back of a plane that's still by the airport gate. The video was seen thousands of times on Facebook, Twitter, and on the Russian social media platform VK. So what are chemtrails? Well, you know the white trails that planes leave behind them in the sky. The chemtrail conspiracy theory says that those white trails are made up of toxic chemicals. And governments are putting these chemicals into the atmosphere to change the weather and even to control the population. Now let's go back to the video. If you look at the tail of the plane, you can see the red logo of Japan Airlines.
Japan Airlines.
On another, better quality
This is how you do research, by the way.
version of the video, we can also see the aircraft's registration number, JA8985. That can tell us where the plane's from and even the flights it's done. But when and where was this video filmed? With a reverse image search, we found the video on this Japanese YouTube channel, so we know it was filmed in 2016 or before. We also know that this particular aircraft stopped at Tokyo Haneda International Airport in 2016, according to the plane's flight log, which you can find online. And if we look at photos of the airport on Google, we find this photo, taken from inside the terminal, which shows exactly the same view. So we know where the video was filmed and that it dates back to at least 2016. But what's the deal with all the smoke? We spoke to Bertrand Villemin, the CEO of the French National Council of Legal Experts in
not a lot. And by the way, not a great chemtrail. It didn't really last that long at all, did it?
Space, to ask him what's happening in the video.
Pour moi, cette vidéo montre ce qui s'échappe d'une tuyère de l'APU, c'est l'Auxiliary Power Unit.
The Auxiliary Power Unit, the APU. That's the switch that we were just showing. APU, Auxiliary Power Unit, which is a small engine at the back of the aircraft. All right, Auxiliary Power Unit.
Qui est à l'arrière de l'appareil. Et ces échappements.
The exhaust coming out is from fuel still inside the mechanism, either due
sont soit dus à une injection d'huile
to a mistake or because it's left over after the standard maintenance operation. So a spill, a little bit of spillage.
Japan Airlines told us that there was no incident reported at the time. And they also told fact checkers at the Belgian media, DPA, that it was possible that there had been a minor technical fault in the turbine engine.
Oh, there you go. It could have
so
been
the
that.
video doesn't show a chemtrail, but of a fairly common sight of smoke coming out of the exhaust of the APU in a Japanese aeroplane.
See, that's excellent research. And the only way that could have been better is she'd done it in a bikini, because she had all the points. She did great research there. And that's really what you got to do if you want to be an investigator, if you really want to be in on this truth game. You can't stop at what other people tell you. You can't stop at the bare, you can't stop at your lying eyes. You always have to dig deeper. Like that's the key. Otherwise, people can just know you with fallacies, or they can emotionally manipulate you. There's a lot of different ways that people get grifted and become grift, right? They get grifted and then they become an extension of the grift. That's what people don't want. That's what you don't want. I don't believe that most people want that, right? So it's all about slowing down, stepping back, being humble, being brave, and always questioning to the void, living in the truth. Don't settle for anything less, and you will survive these. You will survive the second veil. You will get through the second veil.
All right, so that's just one example, Tom, of the many pieces of false information that are floating around in that cloud of chemtrail theories and conspiracy theories online.
There you go. All right, that's perfect ending there. All right, so let's pull that back for a second. All planes have APUs. The batteries aren't powerful enough to start the big engines. Right, it's just it was exhaust. It didn't make any sense that would have been a chemtrail, but that's how fast bias confirmation will latch onto it, because they really have nothing to go on other than lying eyes and a bunch of information put out there by people with the same condition, right? And unfortunately, we just need to walk that back a little bit. You'll be all right. We get it. A lot of people didn't notice these lingering contrails growing up. I totally understand. Traffic patterns have picked up since you were a child. The engines have gotten bigger. And you know, these things can definitely happen. So if you don't have if you already have a healthy distrust of government and you have a healthy distrust of the establishment, you're in a good place there, but you just can't let it go overboard. You have to always remember that your integrity and your credibility and your reputation is #1 in this game, right? And we've already made the mistakes of letting too many knee-jerk reactions and too many poor investigators lead the charge in the quote unquote truth movement. And they become these things called truthers, and truthers are full of shit, right? We're truth seekers, truth defenders here. We're not truthers. Truthers is like, okay, I'm going to tell you every single conspiracy theory out there and call it truth, right? You follow the truthers, you'll follow them right down a rabbit hole, and that's where you'll be stuck, and that's where you'll be labeled, and that's what people will think of you from here on out. So walk it back, be brave, and let's keep going. All right. I'm going to give you everything you need to get out of it here in a minute too. So hang tight. We're going to keep on going, but okay. I'm kind of skipping ahead in this video a little bit. So this one's going to go on for a little bit, but this guy's really good though. He's very sarcastic. But you'll see that it's kind of it kind of makes sense though. Kind of makes sense. Let me see where I want to start him off at. Give me a second. Hang tight. I'm just queuing this up. Oh God. And of course, when I do that, it likes to stop. Just queuing this up. Hang tight. Hang on, it's like so much information in this one. Okay. Hang on. I'm gonna start right here. But see, I want to get to actually, you know what? I'm gonna skip. I think we covered a lot of this already. Yeah, we just did that. So this is the point I'm gonna take out of this video. I suggest that in the playlist, you guys go ahead and watch this entire video. It's called The Chemtrail Conspiracy Theory Debunked. It's by this guy named Skeptical Human, which, you know, in itself is fine. But let me just go ahead and get to this. This is kind of where we left off in the last video. This will take us into what it looks like when someone's trying to grift to other people. And so this is for the people that are out there kind of locked into it, right? What it sounds like, what you kind of come across sounding like to other people when you're talking about this, and what they're thinking, logical, intelligent person thinking as they hear this, right? They're not in the same place you are mentally with this fear that you're having over these chemtrails. They are in a different place of trying to analyze carefully what you say. Now, everybody has different levels of intelligence and they have different levels of analytical ability, but you know, you're going to find people like him in this video and myself that can actually will sit there and listen to the words you're saying and kind of pick them apart and to choose to find that to discern whether you're making, you know, you're saying something truthful or not. So let's just start with this. And he'll work right into it, and I'll make comments.
100% exposed here is your gullibility and ignorance. As pointed out by Mick West on metabunk.org, other alleged chemtrail planes show things like airplanes used for firefighting or for dispersing oil after a spill. Alternatively, some of what we're told are chemtrail spraying nozzles are actually things like instruments and sensors used during aircraft testing. Despite these reasonable explanations, chemtrailers continue to pass around photos like this and falsely claim that they show
Right? We look at this. Does this make any sense?
the inside of chemtrail planes. For example, YouTuber That Is Impossible posted a video entitled Leaked, the Inside of Chemtrail Planes. And it's just a collection of photos that show everything except chemtrail planes. Maybe people could do 2 minutes of research, or maybe they could be extremely credulous and post comments like, quote, "We're being exterminated like cockroaches," end quote. Homeboy, the only thing that's being exterminated are my brain cells when I read your comments. It's also crucial to ask why chemtrails would be sprayed in the first place. Why bother with all of this, and why keep it a secret? The purported motives are wide-ranging, with each one being more absurd than the last. Some argue that the goal is to get people sick, thus boosting pharmaceutical industry profits and also contributing to depopulation efforts. Conspiracy theorists write articles with headlines like "Chemtrail Flu, have you got it yet?" In an InfoWars video entitled "Is the Chemtrail Flu Real?", we see marched before our eyes a parade of silly arguments, courtesy of Dr. Edward Group.
Because I was with my family on spring break about 3 weeks ago up in Utah. And as soon as I got there, Salt Lake City, and then went to Deer Valley and Park City, all I saw in the sky was a bunch of chemtrails. So immediately I was concerned about that. And the third day I was there, my body is real sensitive to chemicals and real sensitive to anything in the air, the water, the food, because I've been pretty much vegan, vegetarian. I detoxify my body on a regular basis. So my wife even said something about, she said, "Wow, look at all these chemtrails in the..."
Okay, real quick. I just want to point out, this came from a time period when they weren't doing a really good job vetting people. It's worse. Everything was up for grabs. If you wanted to come in there with anything, they'd let you talk about it, and then they would kind of go through it and see what's up. But in this case, going back and re-listening to this, like, years later, this probably had to be around 2015, 16, somewhere in there, maybe. You just pick up on how full of shit this guy is. Like, and he may believe it. Maybe he believes it, or maybe he's just believing it to make a point about, because he was a supplement guy, right? He was the guy that puts together health cures, holistic health cures, and so that's what his whole deal is. So he's not with InfoWars anymore. He's not associated with them in any way. They've parted ways at some point. But listen to what he has to say. This isn't a knock on InfoWars or anything. I just want you to hear what it sounds like when people start talking about something they really don't have any idea, and how he tries to make it real for himself. So again, I'm not knocking InfoWars or Alex Jones for this, but however, at some level, Alex has to take responsibility for this kind of information being on his channel. I don't think you're going to be able to tune in these days and hear too much of this kind of stuff, but I don't know. I don't listen to it daily anymore. And I would just say to him, if I were to ever have a conversation with him, I would get into this topic with him and be like, you really need to walk this back, or you need to figure out how to better frame it so that you don't come across sounding like these people that are just grifting. What else can I say? Now, like I said, not everybody has done the research and done the time, and some people just buy into stuff and don't even realize they've bought into it.
Yeah, and then I started noticing a bunch of people walking around coughing, respiratory, and they were even talking about the Park City flu. Everybody was talking about it.
Can you believe that this guy is an actual doctor? He seems like the kind of paranoid hippie that you'd run into at a college house party. I was like,
Right?
bro, look at all these
true.
chemtrails.
True.
It's like totally the government, man. Anyway, you want to buy some acid or something? Assuming he's a practicing doctor, I wonder if he treats his patients with the same irrationality. Hey, doc, so I've been coughing for about a week and I've got a pretty bad sore
So yeah, this guy didn't figure out what kind of doctor he is, but okay. So we all have work to do, right?
throat. Must be the chemtrails. I've got just the thing for you.
He's not a real
You're going to
doctor.
stick these herbs up your ass and you're going to do some hot yoga for 2 hours. He noticed a bunch of people coughing. Okay, maybe they were sick. Maybe they had seasonal allergies. Maybe they work in a coal mine and have the black lung. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. These people just leap to an absurd conclusion without exhausting or apparently even considering alternative explanations. His logic couldn't be more unreasonable even if it tried to. I saw chemtrails in the sky, I saw people coughing, therefore the chemtrails in the sky are the cause of the people coughing. This is the classic fallacy, post hoc ergo propter hoc. After this, therefore because of this. Just because...
See, when you know fallacies and you understand the trivium, like this dude obviously does, you understand logic, you can point these things out. You can hear it in what people say. So when people are listening to you go on and on about how chemtrails are real, and you're not making any sense at all, you know, there's people that can see where you're actually making a mistake. I'm one of them. This guy's one of them. But you can actually tell from your actual rhetoric when you speak where you're creating the false logic. And that's why I'm saying, like, kids need to learn this stuff early on. It's such a great antivirus against disinformation and false logic. It keeps them out of conspiracy grifts. It keeps them out of establishment grifts. Keeps them out of all of them, right? It makes them stronger. So if you have kids, teach them these things, man. Teach them these things.
Something preceded an event doesn't mean that it's the cause of the event.
Teach them
Maybe
the
those were
trivia
just
on that.
ordinary, harmless contrails, and the people were sick simply because people get sick sometimes. And it was spring break, too. This is when a lot of people are traveling, going to airports with large concentrations of people, and being exposed
Making
to
out
all
with
kinds
strangers.
of bacteria and viruses that their body isn't used to. It should really go without saying that there is no need to invoke a grand conspiracy to explain why some people got sick.
And they were even talking about the Park City flu. Everybody was talking about it. So on day 3, with me breathing the air, I was completely knocked out. I mean, I couldn't even move. I was in my bed, and I could feel that this was a man-made thing. Because I mean, I really pay attention to my body, and I felt like I was being attacked by 3 different organisms at the same time. It's like, this is very strange, you know. And being involved with chemtrails and biological warfare research for years and years, I knew that this was a man-made thing, and I knew that it was being sprayed there, and I was wondering where else it was being sprayed.
Wow, this guy is the non-critical thinker of the year. On day 3, I was sick. Maybe that's because you got sick from the people coughing around you. Why is the explanation necessarily that pathogens are being sprayed from airplanes? What a ludicrous explanation for a mild sickness. Huh, looks like I'm not feeling too good today. That must mean that evil men in airplanes sprayed microorganisms on me. Even a paranoid schizophrenic would be like, all right, man, that's a bit much right there. And he could feel that this was a man-made thing. Can you believe what you are listening to? How could you possibly distinguish between a sickness from microorganisms that naturally spread around the environments and
Right. I mean, like, he really believes it too. Like, he might believe this himself, that he can feel it was a man-made thing. Like, he could feel it. Like, by what like, how can you tell the difference? Like, how are you going to be able to tell the difference between something that you think is man-made and something that's just natural, maybe you haven't had before? You know, I could tell it was a man-made thing. I really pay attention to my body. Oh yeah, you're on another level. You're better than the rest of us when it comes to this, right? I felt like I was being attacked by 3 different organisms. How the hell can you tell? Oh, because, you know, I had, you know, stomach issues, and I was congested and I was coughing. So lungs, sinuses, and intestinal. Well, that's what most people feel like when they have a flu, right?
microorganisms that are sprayed from airplanes. What about a sickness could tell you that it originated from an airplane nozzle? This is pure imagination on his part and nothing more. If I ever walk into a doctor's office and see this guy holding a clipboard, I will knock over an old lady to run in the opposite direction. I knew that this was a man-made thing. Really, how did you know? Did you collect samples of what was being sprayed to definitively prove that the pathogen you were infected with originated from that airplane? And did you take every possible precaution to ensure no cross-contamination in the sampling? This guy has no rational basis for this. He's just assuming that it's a man-made thing, for no good reason. I was sick, therefore chemtrails. When you boil it down, that's basically what he's arguing here. It also seems like there's some confirmation bias going on here. He's saying, I got sick just after I saw the chemtrails. What about all the times this guy was sick and there weren't any so-called chemtrails in the sky? What about all the times there were chemtrails in the sky and he didn't get sick? He's obviously not remembering or mentioning these events because they don't fit in with his narrative. But these are the kind of things you need to take into consideration if you want to think rationally about events.
So as I was looking into this, I was saying, okay, well, what's going on? What could this be in the chemtrails? And looking at all of the different states all across the nation. And sure enough, you know, North Carolina's had 8 deaths. There's a chronic respiratory infection going on all across the United States, coughing, heart attacks that are happening. I started piecing it all back to
if you believe in
a few different organisms that they found and tested. An organization up in British Columbia in Canada tested and found 3 microorganisms, Pseudomonas, some mold, and another strange organism. And I'm linking that to all these problems that we're having because ethylene dibromide, they're finding in the chemtrails as well. And that is a banned pesticide that causes severe respiratory and immune system dysfunction.
I like finding it.
Also, I found that the organisms identified in the chemtrails actually cause endocarditis, swelling around the heart, as well as heart attacks. And I've got reports showing individuals that came down with this respiratory illness and died within 2 days.
I know this all sounds terrifying, but fear not, because in the description of this video, they have links to dozens of InfoWars supplements, including Deep Cleanse, Brain Force, Ancient Defense, Secret 12, and my personal favorite, X2 Survival Shield. Just make sure to take your Super Male Vitality as well, and you should be fine. By the way, I wonder if there's anyone out there who takes all of these supplements. You think Alex Jones spends 30 minutes each morning taking every single one of these? He's like, fuck, I can't remember if I took my Living Defense or Ancient Defense already. Oopsie, accidentally took some Super Female Vitality today, and he like grows a pair of tits or something. All right, so this guy's...
Okay, so those descriptions for those supplements are in all the videos of that time. So that, again, a little bit of research on this guy's part. But again, I don't think that's what it is. I think that, look, some mold, some other strange organisms, we know that they can't make it through the jet engines themselves. Like if they're being blasted through the fuel, it's going to burn out. Like mold's going to burn out. Organisms are going to burn out at 1,000 degrees, right? Well, actually, when they're actually burned, they're at 3,000 degrees. And when they come out the tail end of the jet, it's at 1,000 degrees, right? So these super molds and super organisms that somehow can withstand heat, right? According to this guy, they're fighting it in the chemtrails. What are they doing? Are they riding behind them in planes and collecting it directly from there? They're probably just getting a bunch of water, right? No, they're actually taking ground samples, and we're going to get to that later on.
Cite some chemicals and microorganisms that have allegedly been detected in chemtrails. Naturally, I was thrilled to read about their sampling methodology, but I was unable to find the unspecified group in British Columbia that he claims tested the chemtrails.
Right.
And that's a shame, because I'm sure it would have been the most rigorous study in human history. I did, however, manage to find an article on Geoengineering Watch that mentioned ethylene dibromide in chemtrails.
There we go.
As they write, quote, according to a report published August 28, 2006 in the Idaho Observer, recent lab reports found the following in samples of chemtrail fallout. Bacteria, including anthrax and pneumonia, 9 chemicals, including acetylcholine chloride, 26 heavy metals, including arsenic, lead, barium, mercury, and uranium, 4 molds and fungi, 7 viruses, 2 cancers, 2 vaccines, and 2 sedatives, end quote. Jesus Christ, is there anything they didn't find in the chemtrails? They also found a small Hispanic man shrunk down to the size of a marble. I was obviously skeptical about these claims, so I tried to track down the original report in the Idaho Observer, and I was unable to find it. All I see are people repeating this assertion online, but I see no links to the original report anywhere. I even searched through the old Idaho Observer website, and I couldn't find any articles on chemtrails published on the date that people are referencing.
This is how you do research, by the way.
Maybe that's just because the Men in Black forced them to take it down because it was so devastatingly revealing. A close look at the language here makes clear that whatever they're referencing, it's not a scientific publication. Frankly, it reads to me like an outright fabrication. And here's the red flag. They write that in samples of chemtrail fallout, they detected 2 cancers. How do you even detect cancer in isolation? That makes no sense. Cancer is basically runaway cell replication within an organism. It's not like cancer is this thing that floats around and that you inhale and that spreads from person to person. To say that we detected cancers in chemtrail samples is a nonsensical statement, unless they're literally dropping out of the sky people who have cancer. Now that's what I call a fucking chemtrail right there. Rupert, you're up next. Hey, what's that, young man? Hey. That's my old man falling out of an airplane impression. Hope you liked it. Even assuming that cancer could somehow be isolated, preserved, and aerosolized into the environment, I can't see what the possible benefit of this would be, because cancer is not contagious, and it's dependent upon its host organism for survival. This was clearly written by a person who doesn't know the first thing about cancer, and this glaring scientific inaccuracy makes me think that these chemtrail sample results are a complete fabrication. And
yeah, but people that buy into it and don't understand this, they'll just take it and run with it, right? They won't stop and say, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Vaccines. 2 vaccines.
Even if there were some sample results along these lines, I would strongly question the sampling protocol.
2 cents.
You could imagine a person simply taking air samples on a particularly chemtraily day and finding a variety of microorganisms and chemicals, because these things obviously float around. But again, we encounter that same problem from earlier. Just because you detect something in the environment doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from your preferred source. In order to ensure that there was no external contamination, chemtrail samples would need to be taken right then and there in the sky as they're being sprayed.
That's what
Ideally, you'd want to sample the chemtrail concoction itself. Where are the studies that have done this? Can you share them with me? I won't hold my breath. And I guess that means I'm running the risk of inhaling these chemtrails. But what can I say? I like to live dangerously.
It's a sinister plan, I think, to destroy. What's happening with a lot of it is it's destroying the soil. So it's not only keeping people sick, keeping people dumbed down, causing massive illness, which they can bank off of because all the doctors' visits, and then they're going to be able to sell vaccinations. But recent research has shown that some of these organisms that are getting inside your system and some of these metals that accumulate in your system can actually be controlled through cell phone towers and through frequencies. So they can.
Okay, so here we go with that, right? So now, in order for look at his face, in order for it to make sense, there has to be other things involved, because by itself it doesn't. So now there has to be that your cell phones are involved. There's HARP involved. There's all these other things involved, right? They have to be part of it. That obviously weren't around at certain times either, right? So back to their timelines get a little bit messed up with this technology as well, which they never explained.
Actually, alter what's going on inside your body.
This guy is out of his fucking mind if he believes this nonsense. Microorganisms and metals in your body can be controlled through cell phone towers. This is some of the craziest shit I've ever heard. This is the kind of claim that requires some serious evidence. Yet all he says is recent research has shown. Recent research has shown. What does this guy know about research? His idea of research seems to be blindly believing every outlandish claim that he hears. This guy couldn't research his way out of a wet paper bag. This is another commonly encountered conspiracy theorist tactic right here. They'll say that their claims are supported by research, but it's usually unspecified research. They'll say
Right.
things like, the research shows that these chemicals are being sprayed.
Yeah.
Perfect
What
example of
research?
this.
Hold on. Perfect example. Let's see. Damn lucky person that won the sedative lottery instead of cancer or anthrax one, right? So wait, do they dart down to the ground just willy nilly from way up there? Exactly. Yeah, they figure it just drops down like in a straight line. Free fall velocity, no air currents, no drifting, no anything, right? Yeah, of course. No, they're going to fall straight down because they're so heavy, but yet they're nanoparticles according to them, and that have been through a jet engine or some kind of mechanism, right? They'll never tell you which one it is because again, that's one of the big questions they can't explain or refuse to address, which is how do they spray, what kind of planes do it, and so on, right?
In the comment section of a chemtrail video, Deanna Young wrote, quote, studies have been done with scientists that show metallic particles found in the air after sprays, end quote. Jesus Christ, learn to fucking spell, lady. Metallic particles. I sound like a Frenchman or something trying to read this crap. Studies have been done? Really? What studies? Who are the lead authors? What journal was this published in, and what's the publication date so that I can read this research and take a look at their methodology? Some guy asked her to provide her sources, and what was her response? She did exactly that, and the science was unimpeachable. I'm kidding, of course. She said, quote, I'm not your researcher. You know how to look stuff up. You obviously do because you're on your device now. So stop being lazy and do your own research.
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
I'm not here to prove anything to you.
She
If
hasn't
you're
done her
interested,
research.
then look into it, end quote. What a fucking clown this woman is. Hey, did you know that studies prove this outrageous claim that I'm making? Really? What studies? It's not my job to do your research for you. Look it up yourself. Dude, fuck you if this is your response. You are the one that made the claim in the first place that studies support this. So it's your job to back up your claims with evidence. It's not my responsibility to prove your position correct. I almost never see a conspiracy theorist say things like, you can read about this in a 2012 publication in the Journal of the Atmospheric Sciences, written by David Roberts et al. Instead, they'll just vaguely mention unspecified research, which they probably haven't even read, and which very well may not even exist, but they just assume it exists because they've heard other people mention such research. Or maybe there actually is some research, but it's not proper scientific research with a rigorous methodology. And instead, it's just some amateur asshole sloppily taking some useless samples and misreading the data to draw large, unjustified conclusions, like we saw earlier in the case of those aluminum measurements. I'm open to evidence and I'm open to such research, but it's just not the kind of thing that comes across my desk very often. I think this guy might actually be right about the government mind control, however. How else could you explain the series of embarrassing statements that he makes here? The guys over at the CIA controlling the joysticks must be laughing their ass off watching this interview. There also seems to be
right. But yeah, then they talk about the sludge, right? So like again, don't mix in dirt because dirt's full of all these things already. So you're going to contaminate your ground samples if you mix in dirt, right? The only way to have a real sample is to get right behind the plane and take one, which no one has ever done ever. And again, back to this statement right here. There's a sludge, right? Pond sediments, sludge, right? Lined pond, back road. There you go. That's where they got the sample from, and it has all this major stuff in it because it's sludge. What is sludge? It's a mixture of dirt and water. And you go back a little bit further. Do your own research, right? This is one of the things they always say because they haven't done it themselves, right? So they're like, oh yeah, you go out and find it because I'm already assuming that it's there. So, but I'm not going to go look for it because I already believe it. So you have to go do your own work to figure out this stuff yourself. And when they actually go to do it, they can't find anything. So, you know, just again, pointing out the grift, someone in like locked into the grift is going to sound this way to other people. And how are they going to take you seriously when you can't even back up what you're saying? Hold on, I'm just going to do this thing here. Don't ever do this when you're live. Oh, good old YouTube. Give it a second here. Hold on. Refresh it. And this always fixes it.
Of publication in the Journal of the Atmospheric Sciences, written by David Roberts et al. Instead, they'll just vaguely mention unspecified research, which they probably haven't even read, and which very well may not even exist, but they just assume it exists because they've heard other people mention such research. Or maybe there actually is some research, but it's not proper scientific research with a rigorous methodology. And instead, it's just some amateur asshole sloppily taking some useless samples and misreading the data to draw large, unjustified conclusions, like we saw earlier in the case of those aluminum measurements. I'm open to evidence and I'm open to such research, but it's just not the kind of thing that explain the series of embarrassing statements that he makes here. The guys over at the CIA controlling the joysticks must be laughing their ass off watching this interview. There also seems to be a bit of a contradiction here. Earlier, he was arguing that these chemtrails are killing people. Now he's saying that the goal is to profit from their sickness. Well, you can't profit from dead people, can you? So which one is it? Or maybe that's part of the conspiracy as well, with funeral homes and even the lowly gravedigger being involved. In what a miraculous concoction they must be spraying. Not only can it make you sick and kill you, but it can also dumb you down and potentially be used for cell phone tower mind control. What can't these chemtrails do? And where is the evidence for any of this shit? It's not enough to just think of a plausible motive. You have to actually demonstrate that these chemtrails are being sprayed and that they have the effects that you claim they do. There's no good evidence to believe that chemtrails exist, yet these people are having a sober discussion about the motives for doing something that isn't even happening. It'd be like people talking about why a ghost is haunting your house. He was murdered there, he doesn't like black people, and I'm like, slow down. First, we need to establish that there even is such a thing as a ghost, and that one is in fact haunting your house before we can start speculating about why it's happening. And if, as they believe, they're just spraying this shit willy-nilly into the atmosphere, how do these sinister elites and their friends and family members avoid the grave consequences of these chemtrails? Shouldn't we expect to see people like Bill Gates constantly wearing a gas mask outside? Let's see what Dr. Edward Group has to say about this.
Here we go.
But now I've also, a lot of people, whenever we put out these videos, they say, well, why would they just willy-nilly spray? They're going to get affected by it too. It's not like you can control who's going to be breathing in the air or when those particles go down and it gets into the water. I mean, what are we dealing with here? Do they just know, let's stay indoors today? Do they have some type of anti-venom? I mean, how does that work?
There's very, very, very few of the elite, Club of Rome, Illuminati individuals that know about these things, and they do have anti-serums and all that stuff available.
Anti-serums.
We've looked into the reason why there's not a lot of chemtrail spraying in the Houston area, and people say, well, that's because Bush family lives there and stuff like that. So I think in some of the areas where you do have high level globalists, you're not going to see those cities being heavily sprayed.
Really, these elites have anti-serums available. How could you possibly know this? This is quite literally just armchair speculation. And I would love to see the properties of an anti-serum that can counteract all of the harmful aspects of chemtrails. The dozens of microorganisms and chemicals, the mind control. To counteract all of these things, that shit must have been extracted straight out of the fountain of youth or something. The gods themselves have descended from the clouds to create this magical anti-serum. And he claims that very few of the top elites are even aware of this chemtrail program. Really, if very few know about it, then how do you get so many to collaborate? Recall that the cell phone industry and the pharmaceutical industry is involved, as well as top members of the world's governments. And presumably thousands of pilots would have to also be involved, as would engineers and the companies that design and build these special chemtrail planes. Plus, you need the involvement of the chemists and biologists who mix together the evil concoctions. And let's not forget that even the video game industry is involved. A vast conspiracy like this would require the collaboration of easily several thousand people. How could you possibly get so many people across so many different industries and governments to secretly collaborate in this way towards such a sinister end? Not one of them is like, fuck you, I'm not going to do this. They're all going along with it. Where are the whistleblowers who participated?
Not to mention, we just had Trump in for 4 years. So you think he would have said something about it?
And have undeniable evidence that this program is taking place. I don't just mean people who worked for the government or airline industry who say things like, I read about this online and I think it might be happening. Where are the whistleblowers who were involved front and center with the chemtrail campaign and who can prove that these things are happening? And there seems to be another contradiction here. We're told that yes, these elites have anti-serums, but at the same time, they avoid spraying over areas heavily populated by elites. Why bother not spraying these areas if the anti-serums are available? This is a pretty obvious indicator that this guy is just winging it and making it up as he goes. Oh yeah, the anti-serums, the elites totally have that. People actually buying this shit? Another proposed motive for the spraying of chemtrails is boosting agricultural profits. As we read on enjoyaBetterWorld.com, quote, Michael Murphy says there is no coincidence in the fact that chemtrails seem to contain aluminum, and Monsanto has seeds that flourish in aluminum-rich soil where most other plants die. Just another way to increase the bottom line. Kill off the normal plants so that everyone has to buy Monsanto seeds, end quote. Seems like quite a stretch.
Well, Monsanto is already evil as can be anyways. We've been through the GMOs, we've been through all the rackets they pull on farmers and so on. So now they're mixing this in. So Monsanto being now they're bare. Being a real issue, GMOs being a real issue, they're not conflating that real issue with chemtrails. You see, now they have to say, well, what do you don't like GMOs? What do you believe in chemtrails? You see how that works? You see how that works? Well, yeah, but I mean, it's right there in front of you, right? So now they have this great cover. They have this great cover for something that needs to be a real concern, right? They have this great, then that's the unfortunateness of these conspiracy grifts, is that they cover up, they run cover for real things we need to address, like the dangers of GMOs and so on.
And it seems like more and more industries keep getting roped into the conspiracy. Which industries are not involved in chemtrails? For what it's worth, Monsanto outright denies any involvement, as they write on their website.
Well, of course, and that it makes them look innocent of what they're really up to, right? Aluminum resistance. Come on, dude. I mean, this sucks because of all the work we've done to expose Monsanto and the GMOs. Then you have a bunch of chemtrail conspiracy grifters come in and shit all over it, right? And basically run cover for the establishment. As I'm saying, these things end up running cover for the establishment, and maybe it's an unintended consequence. Maybe it's actually they're like, you know what? If we let these people go on believing this and even encourage them to believe it, give them more ammunition, right? Help provide some of the disinformation for them, then we have even better cover, because now we can just say tinfoil conspiracy.
Quote, is it true that Monsanto makes its GMO seed aluminum resistant due to the geoengineering / chemtrailing program going on? We don't produce aluminum resistant seeds, end quote. Yeah, well, that's just what they want you to think. Wake up, sheeple. Even if they or some other organization did have seeds that are aluminum resistant, this wouldn't necessarily mean that they're involved in the conspiracy. Perhaps their research shows that aluminum resistant plants do better for whatever reason, and it thus made sense for them to create such plants. The fact that certain GMO plants are resistant to certain chemicals doesn't mean that these chemicals are therefore being sprayed in the sky from airplanes. Probably the silliest motive that I came across was posted on Above Top Secret by the user Cranky Old Man.
First of all, Above Top Secret is nothing but a bunch of people posting their own stuff. There's not, this is like anybody can go there and post stuff. So,
quote, the main purpose of chemtrails is to abate or at least restrict consciousness-raising energy emitted from the sun and the galactic center. This cuts off the human population from consciousness-raising energies, end quote. Yeah, man, I'm sure that's it. That sounds very plausible. I've seen no convincing,
just like Before It's News. Before It's News is what I was actually thinking of, but they're both similar sites.
Evidence that some sort of chemical or biological toxins are being sprayed into
the trails,
contrary to what the conspiracy theorists will tell you, there's no good reason to believe that what we see in the sky are anything more than ordinary contrails.
All right, so that's kind of like what it looks like when you're debunking a someone who's trying to tell you a line of shit, right? And I can see why this guy isn't around much these days anymore. So now we're going to hear from a pilot. This guy's name is Captain Joe. And we're going to go into our pilot segment here, right? And then we're going to get into what actual geoengineering is. And I'm going to probably skip that one. Okay. And then we're going to go into how it's actually being used. So the truth about geoengineering coming up Above Top Secret, I know, right? The conspiracy grifting websites, man. Is what it's what's going on here. Let me see. I got that. Let's see. I think he needs to be right here. All right. So this guy is an actual airline pilot. Okay. I'm pretty sure he's not being paid off by the Illuminati to make this video, because all of his other videos are about airline piloting. So he's just addressing this because, you know, you kind of need to if you're in this space. Eventually, you're going to have to address some of these things. We see people that are in the yachting and large boat navigation, or had to come out and talk about the Baltimore bridge collapse conspiracy grift that people jumped on, knee-jerked on, and tried to grift off of, that we debunked as well here. So that's the difference between debunking and deprogramming. In debunking, I debunked that as it came out, right? Deprogramming is for long-term grifts, right? The ones that have been around for a long time, people have bought into. How can I walk them back from it? How can I get them to revet their information? How can I get them to reconsider their position on it and get into the light of truth on this and get out of that any of the darkness of the rabbit hole itself?
A video about these mysterious chemtrails. What are they, and especially where do you see them? So let's get started.
1383, runway 27 for takeoff. That is 1538.
So let's look at the word chemtrail. It's made up out of two words, the words chemicals and trails. So it must mean that the trail leaving the plane is chemical, right? And it said that this chemical is being spread out to either manage solar radiation, psychological manipulation, human population control, weather modification, or chemical warfare. At least
you see how many different takes there is on it? There's so many different takes on it. They never can come to a conclusion. You're not going to really find the people that are out there promoting it. They'll may latch onto one and say, this is what I think it is, but they'll also conflate the geoengineering in there almost always. You can almost count on it.
That's what I found out about it on the internet. To make matters worse, it causes illnesses and other health problems. And you're saying this is all coming out of the back of my plane? That seems very superstitious if you ask me. We never had to sign a document during cockpit preparation stating 20 tons of chemicals have now been loaded and are ready for disposal. But still, they must be somewhere. So let's see if we can find these chemtrails.
Okay, let's get started with this. White stuff coming out of the wings and wingtips.
Okay, this is not a chemtrail. This is a...
And again, it's coming on landing on this area. How is that going to be effective, right? But anything to make it work, anything to make the confirm the bias, right?
A wingtip vortex, which can very often be seen if the air is fairly cold and humid. This is the result of an aerodynamic object, in our case a wing, rushing through cold air, generating these trails at the wingtip. The result of simple physics.
And how would that be connected to the fuel, or how would that be connected to any kind of like tanks, giant tanks where people are actually sitting in seats here? Is it supposed to be down there where they're keeping the luggage? I don't understand.
So no chemicals involved at all.
Okay, this looks bad. Black stuff polluting the air.
Well, how often do they actually show anything like this in this kind of videos? This is obviously exhaust. We've all seen exhaust before.
If airlines and the government would try to hide the chemtrails, why would they dye them black so that everyone can see them? That wouldn't make any sense, would it? So this is just black exhaust smoke coming out of the 4 engines of the AirX, but I admit the huge frisbee on top of the plane makes it look like a chemical plane.
This looks more like it. White stuff coming out of those 4 engines at higher altitude. This is it, right?
No, unfortunately not. What you see here are these so-called contrails. Contrails are, again, easy physics and are also made up out of 2 words, the word condensation and trail. And you have created contrails yourself before, trust me. As the air rushes through the turbine, it gets heated up and exits the exhaust at temperatures of 600 degrees. And because the outside air temperature at high altitudes is as low as -60 degrees, the hot air condensates in the cold air, leaving those white trails. So again, no chemtrails.
We've learned about all that and why they persist.
Exhaust gas fumes in there too, but not as much to call it a chemtrail.
But Joe, I've seen pictures of chemtrail on and off switches in the cockpit. So what's up with that?
That, my dear friends, is the work of a pilot with some creative Photoshop skills.
So you're saying these switches don't exist?
No, not really, but I have something similar, which I'll show you in a minute.
But what about this? Okay, this looks very suspicious. We're at high altitude, and suddenly something is being dumped overboard by that hose connected to the wing.
Is this it?
Now we've got it.
Okay, this is actually very close to a chemtrail. What you can see here is fuel being dumped overboard purposely to reduce the airplane's weight for landing.
So we've got it? This is all the rumor about the chemtrails?
No, I'm sorry. Fuel dumping is a rare procedure and only used in cases where it's absolutely necessary to reduce the risk of an overweight landing in case of an emergency, for example. A video about fuel dumping will follow soon.
So that's it? No chemtrails whatsoever?
Not quite. There are planes out there which are certified to spray chemtrails on a large scale, and we've
here it is, guys.
With that chemical.
Crop dusting. There's your chemtrails.
See? Pesticides which are made from chemicals and spraying hoses at the trailing edge of the plane, and you've got
right,
mysterious chemtrails. I hope you enjoyed this short video about this mysterious chemtrails. Perform a touch and go at my Instagram account. The link is in the description below. And subscribe to my channel.
Thanks, Captain Joe. Captain Joe, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Now, Tennessee bans chemtrails, or did they? A lot of people in Tennessee. And what we have here is ex-fighter pilots. Hold on. Let me get this straight here.
Tennessee. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
These are real military pilots, ladies and gentlemen.
Tennessee passes chemtrail bill banning airborne chemtrails.
Coming off the BBC.
I mean, Mace and the Thunderbirds, you guys would expel some obvious chemicals.
Say this guy flew with the Thunderbirds right here, the elite flying squad in the U.S. Air Force.
Out the back. I mean, can you confirm or deny, harmful or not?
Smoke oil.
Is
So it's oil that hits the heat from the engine and vaporizes it into smoke. So
I believe you, but there's
it's
probably a
going
whole
somewhere.
swath. There's probably a whole swath of people like, she's lying.
I mean, I wouldn't stand behind the jet with your mouth open with the smoke running, but I mean, it's not.
Thanks
full
for being
of,
here,
like,
Wolfram.
psychedelics or something that I know of.
So it's a little bit of a lengthy article, but they talk about geoengineering, right? So they don't, I don't know. There's geoengineering is controversial even among legitimate climate scientists because of the uncertainty around its usefulness and possibility of unintended outcomes. Planet-wide climate change engineering is distinct from more routine weather modifications, such as cloud seeding, which increases rainfall over specific areas and is used in several U.S. states. So I
I did rain enhancement before I joined the military, which we actually did burn chemical, expel it out into the air. And the science was it would give the water molecule something to bond to, and it would rain more. So apparently that's not banned, but the more harmful stuff is. But conspiracy theorists point to white plumes of vapor trailing behind passenger airplanes commonly called contrails as proof of sinister and secret plots, but lack of evidence for their claims. The most common claim of proof is simply the aircraft contrails look different without any comparative analysis, according to a report from a Harvard Geoengineering group. Mover, in your time flying larger airplanes, do you know when you're chemming?
It's like,
I'd never chem.
You didn't think it's funny at
Good
all.
on you, man.
It's like, no,
Yeah,
you're not gonna get me.
Chemtrail.
Yeah.
Look, dude, here's the thing. Airlines, like, it's so stupid, right? Because I did a video on this, like, when I first started the channel, and like, there's a lot of angry people about that because this is like their whole worldview. And there's even people that will go up and scream at the sky, like literally. You can go find it on YouTube where they're filming, God, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. Here's the reality: airlines are cheap. They are trying to put as little overhead as they possibly can into those flights, which means they're not going to carry the extra weight of all these sprayers and tanks because they want to put people that pay money to fly them elsewhere. And they're the ones that are generating the white smoke. So if they're not, because the airline's too cheap, then that means you have to have a fleet of thousands of aircraft in addition to this that's their whole job in life, is to go and spray and chemtrail and all that stuff, which means it's ridiculous. It's stupid.
Now, I will play the crazy person and say, well, the government's funding it, so the airlines don't care, man, for losing revenue. Which I agree with you completely. You're not gonna. Would you rather?
Where they put it? Like, have you never been on an airline? Like, where do you put it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a science behind the white stuff that's coming, behind the planes that are flying at altitude overhead. I know,
hot air meets cold, moist air.
Yeah, it's a thing, I mean, right, as fighter pilots, it's like, what altitude I'm going to start conning at, right? Because hello, you give yourself away, right? So I mean, it's yeah, I'm with you, Tennessee, good on you, but I think it's, sure, let's appease them and pass this bill. Next.
I was gonna say, surely it has something to do with the fact that the Earth is flat and the way that gravity works.
Oh no, we're canceled.
Chemtrails.
You have to tip the nose down. You have to keep in
Right.
order to fly with the curvature of the Earth. You have to keep butting the nose.
Yeah, you just trim the nose down.
That's
so-
actually what that Swedish guy was doing. He was folling the Earth's curvature, and that's why he landed the second
Got a
time,
little
because he
overzealous.
misjudged. Yeah, he misjudged the.
Apparently, you need to be going faster.
Yeah.
Just taking off.
Well,
So you see how this comes
with
across to
regard to
people,
this,
right,
it
that are
doesn't
actually in
say
the industry.
chemtrails in it. They don't want geoengineering, which everybody's going to point to that former CIA guy that's like, we need to start thinking about it because of global warming, blah, 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 which, okay, I would like to think about time travel. I would like to think about faster than light travel. There's a lot of things I would love to think about, but that doesn't mean it's happening.
Right, and that's and I'll also say articles written by the BBC, which were the ones who.
Well, it's one of many. I mean, it exists. I mean, the bill exists. It doesn't matter where you get the source.
All right, so there you go. I'll leave it at that. You guys can watch the rest of that video if you want to. I want to go ahead and move on. So yeah, that's how it comes across to the people who are actually involved in the industry and have been in the military, been in other aspects of it, right? And no one's denying that geoengineering is a real thing. It's just that it's not chemtrails, and that's the one thing. That's why I said at the beginning of the video to make that difference, right? To separate the two in your minds, because you're going to learn about both. Now, before I go any further, I want to call out one of the biggest promoters of this Grift on the internet that I've found in recent years. All right, and this is in my conspiracy grifters bookmark, by the way. This guy, Concerned Citizen, right? And if you look at his thing here, UK, US based father. Okay, so he's in both places. His handle is Bill Gates is a psycho. We don't disagree on that. Conspiracy realist, you think. Coincidence analyzer, okay. Data interpreter, we'll see. Reject woke ideology, we're on the same page. Yes, I don't like the pronoun thing either. WEF, middle finger, we're on the same page. So no MNRA, we're on the same page. Stop geoengineering, probably on the same page about that too, but that has nothing to do with chemtrails. And that's what his channel is all about now. A whole month devoted to raising awareness around the impact of geoengineering and chemtrails. He combines the two. Again, you can see what I start this video out by saying. I said that one of the traits of the people who believe in chemtrails is they'll confuse and conflate chemtrails with geoengineering. This is across the board, right? And this guy puts them out all the time. See, if you look at one of these videos, he's playing dumb music over it, right? So he gets all the way through it. And then, oh gosh, don't ever fast forward. You'll be in trouble. And at the end of it, is this the one? Okay, no, this is just him just recording this, right? Guess where he's at? Florida. Lots of humidity there. Oh, here we go. This one right here. Don't play this stupid music. Do you ever talk in your videos? Do you ever like actually explain what's going on? Right? Or just seeing a plane elevating, right? That's all you're seeing right here. There's the 4 from the 4 engines. That's all you're seeing. You're seeing some light refracting off of it. That's supposed to be chemicals, I guess, because of the way the sun is. Oh, look, it turned off because it just entered a different layer, right? And then you guys going to show you some more of this stuff all the way through. Fast forward because he gets to the point where he look you have this, the Illuminati here at the top, right? He's got all the tactics in here. He put these videos together, or did he just copy them? I don't know. The first clip in this video is footage from a spoof video, right? So these reader added content. I've signed up for this, by the way, so hopefully I'll be able to do these eventually. And you can see that he's just adding a bunch of this sensational footage in, right? This is one we just kind of looked at, I think, at another video. And again, just like this, like I'm recording it, right? And there you go, another image of what we know. Oh, look, they climbed up to a different layer, and look. Oh, sorry. This is where you could insist that HARP is part of it. These are HARP waves that cause this pattern because this is the pattern he's seeing, not understanding how weather works. So yeah, so he has to conflate these things into it, right? We don't know where this is coming from, but there's a great cartoon images right here. And you continue. Okay, and here you go, right here. First they spray, then they turn these on, cell towers, right? And HARP and all this stuff, causing this to happen. Aluminum, barium, strontium, nanoparticles are receptive, right? So he believes that all this stuff is coming out of this water vapor, right? And then voila, climate change. So he's saying that he's trying to make the idea that they're making climate change happen. And then they can talk about it. So in a way, he's admitting climate change is real. So I wonder if he even realizes that, and if that's what he really believes. But he's taken all these images that he found, and he was given, right? And he may even copy this from a website and just put it into his video, willy-nilly. This is how reckless this guy is with information, right? Nothing is watch this and stop spraying. Okay, nothing to do with altitude or moisture in the air. It's exactly what it looks like. Your lying eyes see, right? Thank you for being here, Enya. You're awesome. Right now, where did he prove that it has nothing to do with altitude or moisture in his video? He didn't. He just says it again. He just says it. Let's see the spoof video is. Is this the one I've been looking for the whole time? Oh, look at it. I've actually looked at this. What? I'm just checking out this video real quick. I swear to God, this is the one, the fighter pilots that say, look at that chemtrail. If we were in that, we'd be so dead. I swear to God, that's one of the classics I wanted to find. I'll just leave it there for a minute. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to his channel. And just check out his channel and stuff. This is, I doubt this is him. I don't know if this is him or not. I'm helping. See, look at this, right? I mean, I don't disagree about some of the things he says. And then he's talking about neurological damage after the, you know what, right? These are things that he could be helpful with in raising awareness about if he's honest, doing it in an honest way. Right? It seems like he has some good causes, but who's going to listen to him when okay, now we know this guy doesn't believe that. Doesn't believe in the moon landing again. See where this puts you, man? It puts you into this world where nothing is real. Low-lying, lingering blackest clouds due to particulates. It's how you see he's making that up. He doesn't know that, but he sees this going there, and he believes that that's the cause, right? We don't know what we're looking at, honestly, here, and neither does he. That's the thing. If you keep scrolling down through his feed, there's more, right? He's saying, I'm officially the #1 community noted account in the world. No doubt. No doubt. #1. 405 community notes against this channel because he keeps spreading disinformation. Yet, he believes the notes are incorrect because they don't align with his belief, right? Not that his research, his belief. And he just believes that they are indeed this. And people are buying into it. Look at how much activity he has. How many people are hearting this, right? If I can get that on one video, it would be like a record-breaking day on X, right? So he just talked about this. See, yeah, we just researched that whole thing and what it actually said. He's got 300,000 followers on X. That's scary. That's scary. Well, another community note right there that he denies. Here's all the links to things that you need to know to kind of prove this point. But he repointed that, reposted that again. And you just keep going down like every day, a variety of topics. But there it is again, right? Satellite images. This is not really hard to see what they're doing. What are they doing? Oh yeah, this is from the HARP waves. Well, HARP can only get like next week. I'm going to prove to you HARP can only go up so far, and it's a very narrow point that they actually investigated. They actually used for experimentation in the ionosphere. That is pro-Palestinian marches. Good call out. So he does some good stuff, but then he does some really stupid things, and this is what discredits him. And this is the unfortunate reality of living in the conspiracy, the chemtrail conspiracy grift, right? So things you may do may come out as and this person right here is a complete grifter, by the way. It's gonna crap all over the things that you say, right? Other things that you may say that's true. No one's gonna listen to you now, right? UK creates Chemtrail Awareness Month. Really? May is Chemtrail Awareness Month. Oh, is that right? Amazing. Because I guarantee you that's not the case. Probably some conspiracy grifters made that up, but I don't know. And here we go, more of this stuff. This isn't normal. It actually is, unfortunately. So we're going to get into why it's normal. We already got into why it's normal, but we're also going to get into the real thing you should be focused on. That's coming up next, after we get through the geoengineering part. It's coming up. So anyways, this guy every day is putting out this bullshit every day. And dude, to look at how much, and in some cases, some of the stuff is he's not wrong about, but look at how many people follow him. How does he get this popular? Why does he get this popular? How? It's not because people have been doing the research. They just grasp onto these things, right? Oh yeah. So maybe some of these things came from his take on Kuf, you know, maybe some of these things came on his take from Palestine, and then he mixes in this other shit. And that's the danger. This is one of the biggest propagators right now on X of the chemtrail grift, right? So he's actually helping out he's actually helping the establishment by making people, helping people to buy into this, because it's education, buy into this nonsense. And then by then they'll repeat it, they'll repost it, they will lose credibility as well. So who knows? I'm hoping this guy's on the good guy side and just misled, but he really could come across as a tool for disruption, right? A tool for discrediting people who are outside the establishment narrative. And that's the scary part about it. That's the part that sucks, right? That's the part we don't want. So dude, seriously, watch this video. All right. Look, revet your ideas, do it with an open mind. Remember, you'd rather know the truth than be right. And get into fighting a good fight. All right. Get into fighting a good fight. I'll let you go with that. But yeah, I will continue to debunk your bullshit as you post it. Can expect that, because that's what I owe people. He discredited himself. I know he did. He did, and it's sad because some of his ideas are on point, and that's why I'm saying, like, all people that buy into this stuff aren't lost. And I don't want them to feel like they're lost. I want them to feel like there's a way out of it. That it's just part of the process of the second awakening, getting through the establishment narrative, getting through the alternative conspiracy grift narratives, right? To get out of living in fear and live in solutions like that, like us, like what we do here, right? So let's continue. Stop this. Now, I promised you early on that I would take you to an actual geoengineering site here, and we'll actually get to figure out all this stuff. So I'll show you the real deal here. The real deal. Where are we at? We are right. There, right here. Right here. Here we go. And off and running.
Hey everyone, it's Paul Bertorelli. I'm reporting from Hondo, Texas, and I know you've heard all about chemtrails. Well, I caught a chemtrail guy red-handed. We're going to talk to Umberto Vivanco about cloud seeding. He's a cloud seeding pilot. Okay, Umberto, this is your cloud seeding airplane.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, this is a Piper Comanche 250 carbureted, and it's been rigged with the flare rack for cloud seeding purposes.
Flares,
so nothing
not
else
trails,
out of the ordinary,
flares.
From the plane aside for that and the button to ignite.
Okay, so let's look at these things. So these are individual flares.
Yes.
And tell us about the material that you spray in the cloud.
It's basically just silver iodide. It's injected into
silver
the cloud.
iodide.
The cloud will actually suck it up from the airplane once you engage, and it'll just, it's a condensation nuclide. It'll just kind of collect more moisture and hence more the rain. We don't make the rain, we just help it rain more than it would.
Now we're in Texas, where this.
As I was saying, we're 3.5 hours in. Thank you for being here for the full ride. I realize on YouTube we're trying to dribbling off people from watching. We do have a lot of people watching on Rumble, and X is ruling it tonight. X is ruling it. Make sure you guys follow me, man. Follow me for the good stuff. And I gotta say that I'm really disappointed that no chemtrail advocates stopped in to have a conversation. That's pretty sad. It's almost like they want the disinformation out there and they don't want the debunking and deprogramming out there.
Season runs, I think you said, from spring into the fall.
Yes, so about early April to late September is mainly the heavier period.
And how often will you fly?
Well, it really depends. Last week I did about 3 missions. This week I think I'm going to do maybe 1 or 2. And there are weeks where we don't. It's just dry. We have a high pressure system flowing through, and it just really kills off any moisture in the area. So it really depends on what Mother Nature provides.
And how does it work? How does a typical mission work?
Early morning, I would normally get a message indicating the possibility of chance for the day. So either it's no chance to high chance and anything in between. Anything other than a no chance, I usually stand by with the plane, either in Hondo or Uvalde, and I just wait for the meteorologist to say, you know what, in the next hour, I need you to get airborne and head out to the north, or give me a direction to go and find the thunderstorm and seed it.
Now you're talking to a meteorologist who's looking at live radar, and he has a phone link with you, correct?
Yeah, so we communicate just the same radio frequency. It's a different frequency we use, but it's live communications. And as he sees the thunderstorms develop or fade, he will either tell me to go hit it or, forget and go to another cell.
Now, of course, you are flying towards thunderstorms. Yes. And the rest of us are flying away from them. Yeah. So it can get a little hairy sometimes, can it?
It can. Through training, and as the more you do it, you
maybe
become
they're
more
learning
familiar on what spots in the thunderstorms you want to approach. It's all basically just VFR. It's just trying to find the place where the most uplift is into the cell, and ignite your flares at the right time.
So you attempt to fire the flares and have the uplift bring it up into the storm. You generally don't go in the cloud.
Correct. We try to stay, below and away. As we get just as close as we need to get into that part of the cell where it's developing the lift, and inject it into that, and the cloud will do its thing from there.
Okay, so we're looking at the flares here, and you've got, I think you said a total of 40?
Well, it's 38 per side. So I have 38 on this side and 38 on the other side of the plane.
And they burn for how long?
Approximately 40 seconds each.
And you can fire these individually?
Yes. So I have a button inside that I will activate a flare, and if I need to activate,
it doesn't say chemtrail.
I'll activate one, then the other right after.
And how long does a typical mission last?
a mission can last anywhere from about an hour to 3 or 4 hours. You know, sometimes we may have to stop and fuel up and go back up if there are still thunderstorms developing in the area. Sometimes I'll fly 40 minutes just to get to a cell, and then the seeding may take anywhere from 15, 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depends on how hard it is to find the right spot.
And who pays for it?
Basically the counties. It's all paid for by the counties, you know, and I don't get too involved with, you know, that side of the business, but it's divided into the counties, whichever county decides to opt in or opt out.
Okay, thanks, Umberto.
Absolutely, you're welcome, Paul.
All right, with that kind of like operational protocol and procedure, hard to make checkerboard patterns out of that, right? Plus, it's not the same planes they're pointing to in the videos. It's a very different plane. It's a very different structure. It's not coming out of jet engines. It's coming out of flares. That's what a real cloud seeding operation looks like. Who's doing it? Should they be doing it? Is it right? There's your real fight. See what I'm saying? I'm going to give you a way out of this. I'm giving you a way out of the grift to show you that the practice of geoengineering is controversial itself, right? So you don't even need chemtrails to fight this problem. Now, if your problem, what you perceive as a problem, right? Geoengineering, that is. Now, if you're more concerned about the way it looks, like I am, and how it clouds up a nice, clear day, this isn't your target here. But you could also fight that, as in, we need to do better. Now, think about it. If you know that there's layers, right, where, I mean, and you know that they can predict where lingering contrails are going to most likely happen, and at what altitude on what days according to the weather patterns, right? You have to understand that they know this too, so they can actually route things out of those altitudes and keep the skies clear. We actually could do something about the crisscross patterns that clear up, that cloud up sunny days, right? And unfortunately, this is where we start to cross swords with the climate change people, right? This is where we start to cross swords with them, because they may see this as a way to quote unquote cool the earth. And we're going to hear more about that too, especially in the bonus content when we go over to Rumble here. This will probably wrap up at about 4 hours tonight. So like I said, it's a complete guide, right? It's a complete deprogramming guide. I want to make sure I fit everything in. This is something that I'll be using to post around X, and you can use it as well to contradict. Anytime you see a chemtrail advocate trying to rope people into that mind control, you can drop my video link, right? So keep it handy. You may come across it. And when you do, drop my link to the complete guide to deprogramming of the chemtrail conspiracy grift, and everything that they'll need to learn will be in there, right? So that's why I make this kind of things. Also, just to, you know, it's one of those things that when I can get people out of this rabbit hole, they're more effective and they add to the cause. They don't take away from it. Thank you, Memsi. Thank you. And that's for anybody else watching this, rewatch it wherever you're at. You know, that's why I have the complete guide here. I'm trying to include everything in it. That's why it's longer. I do longer form content because of that. I want to be really thorough. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And then plus it gives people that want to have a conversation about it, that believe in it, gives them 3 to 4 hours to pop in at any point and have a conversation. So those who are bold enough and really want to live in truth, do that. Okay, do that. All right. So we have that there. Let me move this to here. And let me get to the next video. We're fastly approaching our jump. Now, it's going on around the world, right? So actually, I think I need to maybe start to make that jump. Yeah, okay. All right. This is what we're going to do. I think it's time to make the jump. Let me see if I had anything left. Okay, I think we pretty much covered all of the different. Let me go back to my list here really quickly, and make sure I've covered it all. All right, so we covered the traits. I think we're pretty well. Typical arguments. We've done great at. Again, I will wrap that up next week with Harp and CERN on Unveiling Reality next week. Look forward to that. Those are so easy to debunk. I can actually fit them both into one episode, and they probably won't even run this long. What they refuse to explain or cannot explain. We've been through everything of that. We've been through all those points on enablement of the conspiracy grift. Okay, so here we are with this. The climate change hoax is and the lack of a real debate on the matter, that they're not allowing a real debate on the matter, public debate, sensible debate, logical debate on the matter. They're just calling people names when they don't agree with them. That's one of the problems that helps enable the conspiracy grift as far as chemtrails are concerned, because they're just believing that people are going out, and a lot of times these people are going out and trying to make changes to the environment based on their belief that the planet's warming because of man-made devices and such and practices. Another enablement of the conspiracy grift is the fact that people when they get down in the rabbit hole, their mind closes. And that's unfortunate, because if you remember, when you were under the influence of the establishment narrative, your mind was closed too. And because it opened up was why you were able to get out. This is the same that's true for conspiracy grift rabbit holes. Like, the only way out of them is to reopen your mind, to revet your ideas, and to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of where your bias is confirmed, and reassess, right? That's all I'm asking people to do here, is reassess. I talked about the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The same issue that happens with flat earthers is that they are really good at something, so they think that they're experts at everything. That's the high level of that. That happens a lot with chemtrails. See my eyes, but it's really your lying eyes, because you don't realize that you don't have depth perception looking up. You don't realize that that you don't have the backing, the scientific background, or the understanding of the weather or how it works up there, how jet engines work. There's something lacking in your expertise because you haven't dedicated your time to that. You've dedicated to the thing that you're really good at, right? And that's okay, right? Because we all can't all be experts at everything. We have to have our specialty. Doing this stuff, this is my specialty, right? And this and computer technology and a few other things I'm really good at. There's a lot that I'm not really good at. There's a lot that I'm not an expert at, and I will walk myself back if I don't stop myself before I get there, and ever trying to be that. Right. That's why I bring you outside information on areas like science and such that I'm not a scientist, but I find people that are. I find people that are trustworthy. I find people most of the time they're outside the establishment itself to give you the correct information. There's a lot of non-biased information out there, and that's what we have to choose from. Right. Like that one guy was saying, I would expect people to say something about this if tens of thousands of people were involved in this conspiracy over the course of decades. Right. Somebody's going to talk sometime. Right. We all know that that's eventually going to happen. Right. Somebody's going to eventually realize, I want to save my kids, so I'm going to whistleblow on this. Right. And they're legitimate, but that didn't happen because it's not a legitimate thing. And it's a sad but easy conspiracy grift to debunk. And hopefully it's a harder one to deprogram, but it's an easy one to debunk. So I do the extra work of trying to deprogram because I believe people matter. But the conspiracy groups themselves, the one caught up in it, they tend to exhibit a lack of expertise, which I discovered, but a lack of care too. Like they don't put the extra effort into it. A lack of responsibility for what they say and accountability for what the results of what they say bring about. Right? If you mislead somebody else, you've done them wrong. You've engaged in a form of mind control against them. Right? And that is going to have consequences for you. Well, you might not feel it, but when things aren't going right in your life, and you can't get people to listen to you, well, that's kind of a result of that, isn't it? And that geoengineering is a real thing. Because it's a real thing, people can conflate it, and you want to couple that with the climate change hoax, and then you got a mess there, right? You got a mess. You got an open door for people to make assumptions and go on a big campaign of spreading assumptions, right? Spreading bias confirmation, spreading their own lack of understanding, right? And the negative results coming about, right? You're discredited, you're spreading disinformation, you're keeping attention off the real problems with geoengineering and other things. Like you're creating a mask, right, by which you can be thrown into a giant vat of tinfoilism, right? And that can cover up things like the engineering behind vaccines and the and other things that need to be investigated, right? That need to be taken seriously. You're diluting your own causes, right? We need to be focused on the real conspiracies that are out there, like the WEF, Agenda 2030, UN, and all the ones that are affecting us, that are trying to take over our way of life, changing our way of life, altering our way of life, and so many more. There's so many real ones out there. You don't need to waste your time with this one. And I'll say this to you, right? If still at the end of all this, I haven't convinced you, I haven't deprogrammed you, I haven't set you on the path to escaping from this grift, think about it like this. If we join forces and just get the corruption out of our governments, right? Then we'll have all the information that you seek. If you believe it's real, it'll come out, right? As long as we can work together to get rid of the corruption in our system and restore honesty and integrity, all the secrets will come out. The alien secrets, all these secrets that you believe are happening. No matter what it is, if you believe one of these conspiracies that aren't really proven, that are considered too far gone, or that have been debunked, and that you're still not convinced, just help us fight the good fight. Keep it on the real. Save these things. Put them on a shelf. Put your chemtrails on the shelf. Put your controlled demolition on the shelf. Put all the things that you think really happened that people are telling you didn't. Put them on a shelf, because when you get honest leadership, the truth will come out. The truth will be released. All the things that the bad guys are trying to hold back, we'll know about. Okay. So we have to get the bad guys out of there first. We need to all work together on a even keel, even plane to do that. Right. We can't be running off people that we may be able to bring to our side by scaring them with things that are out of their control. Like living in fear keeps you on defense. And that's the whole idea of the second veil. The whole idea of the conspiracy grift is that you will be living in fear if you continue down and exist in those rabbit holes, and you won't be effective because of that fear. Fear is an emotion, right? It takes you out of logic. It takes you into a different mode, right? And so in order for us to be convincing about the fact that there is an ongoing generational corruption that causes the worst amongst us to be in control of everything, right? And that we're trying our best to fight that back, trying our best to fight back this globalist agenda, right? These are all real things. These are provable things that we can prove, and we have proven over and over again right here, right? We need to all be on the same page. And if you, no matter what wild conspiracy that you think exists out there that you may disagree with me on or others on, put it on the shelf and just fight the good fight against corruption, period, right? Let's get the good people involved, right? Let's get the good people in charge. Let's get back to that, and then all the information and all the things you want to know will come out, man. And if anything, we'll open up the door for better conversations so that people don't get in these rabbit holes in the first place, right? So that the grifters cannot prevail. All right. So and that pretty much covers all the negative results. There probably are a lot more. Where we agree in the solutions. Well, where we agree is I don't like the way the skies look either, right? And so what I want you to do is follow me over to Rumble and to X, where we're going to go next, where I'm going to talk about solutions, how to escape the grift while saving face and becoming effective. I've said a lot of this already, but I'm also going to point out that and over there in Rumble, exactly where you can focus your energy if you still are concerned about the way the skies look, who you can align yourself with. You can actually align yourself with people that are concerned about the environment, right? Pollution and so on, right? Well, this is a form of pollution, isn't it? That's not like chemical pollution, but they call it there's noise pollution. There's it's kind of like visual pollution, right? If it's obstructing the sunlight, that would be a form of pollution that would not be chemical pollution, yet would still alter what would normally be there, right? Cause a kind of like visual pollution. You could say, well, I'd like to clean the skies up. So how can we get these airliners to fly at a different level? However, as we're going to find out when we go over to Rumble, they're already thinking about that, but maybe in a way you're not going to like, a way I don't like, right? And they're thinking about maybe doing the opposite there. So let's take a look at that. But in order to do that, we got to go to Rumble. So thank you guys, everybody that's been here. The links to Rumble and X are in the description of the video and pinned in the chat. We're going to do our thing where we jump over to Rumble to finish this stream. And if you haven't been over to Rumble yet, make an account, be part of Rumble. Rumble is a free speech platform. We really need to help it grow over there. And when you do, make sure you give me a follow and watch the conclusion of this video. I will see you there, and we will be wrapping it up with a few more videos, including one from Joe Rogan. So be sure to meet us over there. And I'm also going to go into how Dubai actually controls its own weather. That's what we're going to do next, right? So we're going to learn their whole methodology, and we're going to learn about how they've recently had a tremendous weather storm over there that's caused a lot of flooding. People have questions about whether it's cloud seeding that caused it, their own weather control programs. We're going to get into that as well. So join me and everybody else here for the next half of the show. Thank you for that, Mimsy. I really do appreciate it. And this is what I do when I jump to Rumble and X. and I will see you there.
Man, everyone's tensed up for a rumble.